crafted from stones that contain spiritual energy, referred to as Lingbai Yuanshi. This Lingbai Yuanshi is a naturally occurring entity, rich in spiritual energy, and typically arises in places where sunlight and moonlight converge, making it capable of developing spiritual intelligence, much like other botanical and mystical beings. However, throughout countless eras, only a handful of Lingbai Yuanshi have truly manifested spiritual intelligence, causing people to forget that this entity could indeed attain sentience. Once such a uniquely endowed existence as the Lingbai Yuanshi gathers spiritual energy to transform, it becomes an overwhelmingly formidable entity. After all, they're the favored children of the heavens and earth, recognized by the cosmos, and are born with condensed divine patterns, commencing their cultivation from the foundational realm, with the ability to manipulate various forces of order at will. Except for a few supreme orders, Lingbai Yuanshi can easily navigate other powers of order, establishing a close kinship with them. Such an extraordinary advantage is undoubtedly a source of envy for many. The myriad beings below gaze at the stone man with a mixture of envy and hatred, even contemplating the implications of refining it. Nangonghao also pondered this, exclaiming, "My Yuhuang seal still requires certain treasures to be melted down before it can ascend to the status of a sacred artifact, and your soul could serve as the spirit of the vessel. Your appearance is indeed most timely." The stone man, taken aback that he had drawn Nangonghao's attention even before provoking him, could not help but retort, "You dare to be so arrogant with your divine punishment physique? I could easily suppress you with a mere gesture. Tell me, if I were to replicate the divine patterns on your body onto myself, what effect would that yield?" Nangonghao disregarded the stone man's threat, instead contemplating the bestowed divine patterns adorning its form. "Enough idle chatter. You, a mere reject of the ascending hall, possess no qualification to act so brazenly. Come, engage me in battle. Should I find pleasure in our clash, I may allow you to become my servant, the foremost divine general under my command, conquering the realms." The young Peng King leaped into the air, transforming into a colossal azure Kunpeng, instilling awe and trepidation in all beings. Chapter 131. The second Saint Sun emerges. Spatial order. The young Peng King resembled an ancient fierce beast descending from the heavens, exuding an aura of ferocity that caused all onlookers to tremble. Even those observing from the Eastern Wilderness domain felt a chill of fear. What a terrifying power this was. Many seasoned saints believed themselves formidable, yet in comparison to this youthful Peng King, they felt utterly insignificant. This instilled a sense of dread among the people of the Eastern Wilderness. If a mere youth from the Hongmeng Demon Sea could wield such strength, one could only imagine the might of the top-tier ancient beings. Should the Hongmeng Demon Sea launch a full-scale invasion, it would be a dire challenge for the Eastern Wilderness to withstand. The atmosphere grew heavy with gravity. However, Nangonghao soared nonchalantly into the sky, gazing at the young Peng King and declaring, "How fortuitous! I find the void worship cumbersome and lacking in elegance. You shall be my esteemed steed. You seek death." The young Peng King roared, flapping his wings. A tempest of furious winds surged forth, as if to extinguish all existence. The ferocity of this force compelled many beings to retreat, seeking refuge from the battlefield. Yet, Nangonghao remained steadfast, his eyes ablaze with divine light, as two dragons erupted forth, cleaving through the tumultuous winds. "This is splendid." The young Peng King soared higher, his claws poised to seize the two dragons. The ancient Dapeng, known for feasting on dragon flesh and drinking phoenix marrow, was deemed invincible. In this moment, the young Peng King prepared to unleash this unparalleled might, his claws akin to indestructible divine weapons, reaching for the two golden dragons erupting from the wind. Roar! The two golden dragons charged forth, only to be ensnared by the young Peng King's claws. Yet, before he could revel in victory, the two golden dragons entwined around his claws, constricting like ropes, seeking to crush them. Furious and alarmed, the young Peng King snorted, "Truly, the true Gongyu sword." With a flourish, several feathers near his claws resonated, transforming into indomitable divine swords that cleaved the two golden dragons asunder. Merci à trivial technique. Regardless of your profound abilities, you cannot overcome the suppression of realms. The young Peng King proclaimed with haughty confidence, his words resonating deeply. In the Eastern Wilderness, the envoy from Dongxing City nodded in agreement. "It is not my intent to boast of the prowess of the foreign races while belittling my own. However, The son of the Nangong family is truly no match for the young Peng King. His divine punishment physique is too greatly limited. Yet, my family saint's son, once he enters the sword sect, will undoubtedly surpass this young Peng King within a decade, safeguarding the eastern wilderness. The crowd found it difficult to refute this, many nodding in agreement, some already beginning to flatter and ingratiate themselves. After all, the sword sect had taken in Chu Xiaoyuan as a disciple, a figure of extraordinary potential. The future of Chu Xiaoyuan is boundless, and Dongqing City seeks to ally with such greatness. The envoy from the Nangong family wore a derisive expression. I thought you were about to speak a word of justice. In truth, you are merely boasting that Chu Xiaoyuan has caught the attention of the sword sect? The envoy from Dongqing City, basking in the adulation of others, felt a surge of anger at the Nangong family's mockery. What I state is the truth. Just because your son is a failure, do you accuse me of boasting for simply speaking facts? Worry not about my son. The envoy from the Nangong family chose not to respond further. The Dongqing City had just received significant advantage, and their arrogance was swelling. Meanwhile, their own son faced a formidable adversary. Any words spoken would only invite derision. Seeing how a single statement had silenced the usually arrogant members of the Nangong family, the envoy from Dongqing City felt a surge of pride. Other factions exchanged glances, some of Nangong family's subordinate forces even entertaining rebellious thoughts. However, no one dared to act rashly. Who could predict whether Nangong Hao might suddenly turn the tide? At this moment, a thunderous roar resonated, emanating from the revered sacred warrior of the Dozhan Mo Yuan clan. He had mastered the formidable Earth Fiend 72 techniques. Nangong Hao, return the life of our prince. The Mo Yuan sage leapt into the air, delivering a punch that seemed to embody the might of 1,000 mountains. A sight most terrifying. Witnessing this, the myriad beings felt a chill run through their hearts. With two immensely powerful beings besieging him, Nangong Hao of merely the Yuhuang realm was unlikely to withstand such an onslaught. However, at that moment, a brilliant azure light cleaved through the void, striking fiercely at the Mo Yuan sage. Alarmed, the sage sensed the dread of that azure light and instantly transformed into a small crimson bird, a Fengke, a creature famed for its unparalleled speed. This transformation granted the Mo Yuan sage the swiftness of the Fengke, allowing him to dart away and evade the azure light. As the azure glow receded, it left a striking blue trail in the air, cleaving through space itself, a manifestation of the supreme order known as spatial order. The onlookers were taken aback as a figure clad in azure approached. The individual bore a resemblance to Pan and exuding an ethereal presence. Yet most astonishingly, he possessed a singular vertical eye upon his forehead, an appearance reminiscent of a celestial being. It was Nangong's second sacred son, Nangong Tua. The crowd erupted in astonishment, realizing that Nangong Tua had arrived to aid Nangong Hao. Did this mean he did not reject Nangong Hao's identity as the sacred son? Nangong Hao furrowed his brow, for it was his first encounter with his cousin from his family. A battle is acceptable, but to overwhelm with numbers is not. Nangong Tua spoke succinctly, his gaze sharp as he focused on the recovering Mo Yuan sage. The sage grinned wickedly, baring his teeth. Another fool has come to die. Today, you shall witness the prowess of this sage. With a swift motion, the Mo Yuan sage transformed into an imitation of Nangong Ta, clad in azure. Sporting 3 eyes, a surge of azure light erupted from the sage's forehead, revealing his own spatial order. The Earth Fiend 72 transformations were indeed remarkable, capable of mimicking an opponent's divine abilities. Yet, imitation is ultimately imitation. Nangong Tua scoffed coldly as his third eye released azure light. The two beams of azure collided, shattering the Mo Yuan sage's counterfeit technique and nearly injuring him. The supreme order cannot simply be imitated at will. The Mo Yuan sage, undeterred, lunged at Nangong Tua, unleashing a flurry of punches. With an indestructible body and immense strength, he charged forth. Nangong Tua met him in battle, their clash reverberating through the heavens. A fierce stalemate ensued. The emissaries of the Nangong clan felt a surge of pride, proclaiming, "Fear not the counterattack from the Hongmeng Mo Hai. Our sacred son and divine son can withstand it." Yet, the expression of Dongqing City darkened. Do not be hasty. Your divine son is surrounded by numerous foes. Indeed, although Nangong Hao had lost the Mo Yuan sage as an adversary, the stone golem transformed from the spirit coin, and the saber-toothed white tiger advanced towards him. The little Peng King hovered in the sky, the feathered divine sword swirling around him, coldly declaring, Nangong Hao, your arrogance knows no bounds. Having offended so many powerful beings, what can you say now? You can fly. You may serve as a mount. The stone golem can be used to refine my Yu Huang seal. And as for the saber-toothed white tiger, those teeth will make fine jewelry for my woman. With his hands clasped behind his back, Nangong Hao calmly outlined the roles of his three opponents. Arrogance, insolence, kill. The three beings did not intend to fight alone. With a united roar, they charged forth. Chapter 132, Defying Three with One. Still remarkable, the little Peng King was the swiftest among them, unleashing a barrage of feathered divine, swords akin to a torrential downpour. The whistling sound of the piercing blades sent a shiver through the hearts of all present. This was the Kunpeng clan's treasured technique, the true Vortex Feather Sword, possessing unparalleled order, truly unmatched. Even beings with formidable defenses could not withstand such terrifying power, capable of obliterating a peak sage. Yet, facing this seemingly insurmountable assault, Nangong Hao conjured an astonishing order. The Order of Instruments. To many, this order appeared to be purely auxiliary, almost devoid of offensive or defensive capabilities. No one could fathom why Nangong Hao chose to employ it in such a manner. But in the next moment, the multitude of sharp, true Vortex Feather Swords was unexpectedly redirected by the Order of Instruments, hurtling away towards the distant Ascension Hall, inflicting no harm upon Nangong Hao. The crowd was left astounded by this spectacle. The power capable of obliterating a peak sage had been diverted. The Order of Instruments possessed the ability to disrupt others' attacks. An experienced, powerful being seized the opportunity to enlighten the younger generation, stating, "Did you see that? I have always told you that the 3,000 orders are not ranked by precedence or levels, but solely by the user's technique. Even this pitifully weak Order of Instruments can still overturn an opponent's formidable strike." Unquestionably, many beings were awakened by Nangong Hao's display, admiring his wisdom and the profound meaning behind his every action. They began to re-evaluate their own strengths. As for Nangong Hao, he charged towards the saber-toothed white tiger, wielding the Earth's Store Bodhi Blade and declaring, "Great Compassion Slash." This technique was specifically designed to counteract the soul. After all, the white tiger's physical form was formidable. The only viable target was its primordial spirit. The white tiger, engulfed in metallic power, roared as it conjured a great magnetic mountain. This mountain disrupted many weapons forged from metal and could even annihilate them. Confidently, the white tiger employed this mountain to withstand Nangong Hao's Earth Store Bodhi Blade. Yet, it was unaware that this blade was not crafted from metal, but was immensely powerful. It cleaved through the magnetic mountain, the ferocious force crashing down upon the white tiger. With a gasp, the white tiger was stunned, yet it managed to summon metallic particles to form a suit of armor, bracing for Nangong Hao's might. However, it could never have anticipated that this strike would penetrate its soul. The agony emanating from the depths of its spirit forced a cry of terror from the white tiger as it fled in fear. Just as Nangong Hao repelled these two adversaries, the stone golem shimmered with divine patterns, striking fiercely at his back. Nangong Hao transformed in the light, evading the damage of the punch, and then summoned a spear of divine light to thrust towards the golem. The golem's divine patterns flared, infused with the will of heaven and earth, enhancing its defenses. The will of heaven and earth cannot be harmed by mortals. You do not deserve to injure me. The golem bellowed, successfully blocking the spear of divine light, suffering no damage whatsoever. In the next instant, Nangong Hao erupted with a blinding radiance. The golem, glaring menacingly at him, was caught off guard by the golden light, causing it immense pain and forcing it to retreat rapidly. Witnessing this scene, the onlookers were left dumbfounded. Nangong Hao had indeed single-handedly withstood the assault of three sacred prodigies. It was well known that these three prodigies could easily annihilate all beings within an ancient kingdom. How could they not be a match for Nangong Hao, who was merely at the Yu Huang realm? Terrifying, the little Peng King, still incredulous at Nangong Hao's might, let out a furious roar, unleashing a resounding sound wave that surged like a tidal wave towards him. Yet, Nangong Hao swiftly shifted his form, employing the speed of divine light to appear behind the little Peng King, and then, akin to a miniature sun, he delivered a scorching punch, the holy light kingly fist. This strike encapsulated not only the boundless strength of countless stars, but also the searing power of holy light. Boom! The little Peng King was struck by the punch, letting out a wail as he spewed blood and plummeted downwards. His once proud, sturdy physique could not withstand the force of Nangong Hao's blow. Impossible. How can you be so strong? The saber-toothed white tiger, unwilling to concede, roared as it charged. Enveloped in magnetic steel power, resembling a formidable steel war tiger as it crashed into Nangong Hao. This time, the white tiger employed a special technique to shield its soul, ensuring that the Earth Store Bodhi Blade would not take effect. However, Nangong Hao merely unleashed 2 golden dragons from his eyes. Great Might Heavenly Dragon. The 2 celestial dragons represent the supreme power of the Buddhist realm, capable of subduing demons. A thunderous clash ensued as the dragons collided with the white tiger, unleashing terrifying waves of energy that caused the very fabric of this world to tremble. The shockwaves radiated outward, forcing the stone golem, which had intended to ambush Nangong Hao, to retreat. Seizing the moment, Nangong Hao swiftly maneuvered to position himself behind the stone golem, chaos swirling around him. This chaotic phenomenon was meant to envelop the stone golem and devour the divine patterns of power it possessed, engaging me in combat while daring to be distracted. Do you truly believe these 2 feeble dragons can withstand me? The white tiger roared, preparing to charge once more. Yet, unbeknownst to him, the 2 formidable celestial dragons intertwined, forming a golden ring that spun incessantly. The ring rapidly ensnared the white tiger, activating the power of causality. Initially stunned, the white tiger soon felt his strength wane. It was as if he was reverting to his younger, weaker self. Nangong Hao was intent on utilizing the power of causality to forcibly reverse the outcome of the white tiger's growth, returning him to a time before his evolution. Without the cause of the white tiger's growth, naturally, there could be no effect of increased power. Nangong Hao aimed to reconstruct the white tiger through the force of causality. This attack was immensely fearsome, yet it placed considerable strain on Nangong Hao's spirit. No one could comprehend how he could simultaneously combat the stone golem while also targeting the white tiger. Roar! No, I refuse to accept this. The white tiger bellowed in desperation, struggling fiercely. Little Peng Wang, come save me. Little Peng Wang, who was currently coughing blood on the ground, sensed the impending doom of the white tiger and immediately let out a long cry. Invoking the divine abilities of the Kunpeng clan, the dragon capture technique, he aimed to wrench the white tiger free from the causal golden ring. However, this proved to be a Herculean task. Meanwhile, as they busied themselves, Nangong Hao had already drawn the stone golem into chaos, devouring the orders of time and even the orders of artifacts, causing them to erupt. These supreme orders entwined the stone golem, striving to refine its very essence. The stone golem was overwhelmed with fear as its divine patterns flickered incessantly. It roared in defiance. Useless. You cannot refine me, unless you comprehend the divine patterns upon me. Otherwise, I am the embodiment of the will of heaven and earth, and cannot be refined. Nangong Hao scoffed disdainfully. Do you think that is what I am doing? What? The stone golem gasped in shock, turning its gaze toward Nangong Hao. Indeed, this fellow was using the power of order to compel the divine patterns of the stone golem to illuminate as he focused intently on understanding them. In a mix of astonishment and fury, the stone golem felt a laugh bubbling up. Do you think my divine patterns are so easily comprehensible? What a joke. Nangong Hao said little more, merely moving his hands to replicate the patterns of the divine markings, crafting waves of energy within the chaos. These waves were peculiar, containing an elusive power, appearing akin to a child's erratic scribbles on paper. They seemed utterly meaningless, yet they possessed immense strength. In a fervent display, Nangong Hao continued to draw, generating chaotic lines. These lines, while disordered, contained tremendous power. To onlookers, this may have seemed like a foolish endeavor. Yet, the stone golem was genuinely astonished, for it could sense that these lines bore a striking resemblance to the divine patterns that adorned its form. Why? How could he replicate the divine patterns upon me? This was the manifestation of the will of heaven and earth, the supreme divine markings. As a spirit stone, I was nurtured by the cosmos itself, granting me the privilege to comprehend and wield these patterns. How could a mere human boy presume to do so? Yet, the spirit stone was unaware that Nangong Hao's understanding of the divine patterns stemmed from the order of calligraphy and painting. Drawing upon the order acquired from the Bai Ma Shu Yuan, Nangong Hao meticulously imitated the divine patterns, deepening his comprehension. As the ancient saying goes, a poor memory is no match for a poor pen. Though he could not grasp the divine patterns instantly, he could continuously replicate them. With persistent practice, he would ultimately retain and understand them. Suddenly, An overwhelming and terrifying wave of energy surged outward, destabilizing the chaos itself. The stone golem was further astonished, its eyes wide in disbelief, as Nangong Hao had truly succeeded in his understanding. A smile graced Nangong Hao's lips as he softly remarked, "So, it is a great power of the Tao, known as all things. The Tao of all things signifies that by mastering this path, one can absorb the strength of all entities, enhancing oneself, and even creating new life. Furthermore, as long as one controls this Tao, they can absorb any power, ensuring they never fear depletion of strength in battle." Nangong Hao mused, "This Tao is indeed formidable, and now it belongs to me." While speaking, he continued to inscribe the divine patterns with deft movements. Subsequently, Nangong Hao summoned the Yu Huang Yin, inscribing the divine patterns upon it. Upon witnessing his divine patterns being drawn upon the imperial artifact, the stone golem bellowed, "Cease this at once." With a surge of violent power, the stone golem struggled fiercely, attempting to break free from the bindings of the Order of Time and the Devouring Order. With a thunderous crash, the stone golem succeeded in breaking through. It charged forward, intent on colliding with Nangong Hao. Should its solid form and surging divine pattern strength collide with Nangong Hao, it would surely leave him gravely wounded. Yet astonishingly, the stone golem merely passed through Nangong Hao's form. It was a holy light Tao. Although it was incomplete, it still rendered Nangong Hao immune to physical attacks. Unless faced with certain unique methods or soul attacks, no one could harm him now. The stone golem, in a frenzy, attempted to strike him down repeatedly, yet failed to graze even the hem of Nangong Hao's attire. Enraged, it unleashed a peculiar force from its divine patterns, the will of heaven and earth, ever-changing and unfathomable. The stone golem emanated a soul-shattering power that surged toward Nangong Hao. In response, Nangong Hao summoned forth a miniature world, filled with a legion of vengeful spirits encircling him to block the soul attack. The wails of the apparitions echoed in despair. The power of the divine patterns relentlessly destroyed these spirits, sending them fleeing in terror. The stone golem roared, "Nangong Hao, do you wish for me to utterly annihilate your miniature world?" Nangong Hao responded, not with words, but by sensing the soul-attacking divine pattern power, preparing to replicate it. What a terrifying talent this fellow possesses. The stone golem was filled with trepidation, unable to fathom how Nangong Hao could replicate its divine patterns merely by sensing the attack. If this continued, all of its power would surely be duplicated. This cannot be allowed. It must be obliterated. The stone golem continued to roar, relentlessly assaulting the myriad spirits within Nangong Hao's miniature world. Yet, they were endless in number. For Nangong Hao's miniature world was connected to the underworld, and with the assistance of the Yin Tianzi, an unending tide of earth spirits surged forth from the underworld into Nangong Hao's realm. You wish to kill? Go ahead. There is an inexhaustible supply of ghosts. The stone golem, driven mad, radiated a blinding light from its divine patterns, eventually transforming into a blazing sun. The eruption of divine radiance seemed to herald the arrival of a deity, capable of vanquishing all. Nangong Hao understood that the golem intended to use this dazzling display to obscure his view of the divine patterns. However, to his advantage, he possessed the eye of heaven, allowing him to discern even the color of the stone golem's undergarments, let alone its divine patterns. One by one, the divine patterns were inscribed onto the Yu Huang Yin. Eventually, the Yu Huang Yin could no longer withstand the strain, emitting a series of cracking sounds. Upon inscribing the 10th divine pattern, it shattered entirely. This was supposedly a gift from heaven, yet it was utterly inadequate. Nangong Hao regarded it with disdain, ceasing his attempts to inscribe further. This artifact was already sufficient to be upgraded to a sacred item. Very well, I shall inscribe the patterns directly upon myself. Nangong Hao proceeded to replicate the divine patterns onto his own body. In an instant, the azure locking heaven chains upon him trembled violently, while ominous thunderclouds gathered in a frenzied and terrifying display. This was divine retribution. Yet, it was not the retribution of the celestial body, but rather the wrath of the will of heaven and earth. Incensed that Nangong Hao had the audacity to replicate the divine patterns of the stone man and inscribe them upon his own being. This was a grand act of usurping the creation of heaven and earth, an affront that could not be tolerated. The onlookers engaged in battle outside were astonished. Lifting their gazes to the sky, they beheld the thunder, which seemed to coalesce into a mountain, pulsating with violent energy, crashing mercilessly into Nangong Hao's chaotic realm. He summoned all his strength in a desperate attempt to absorb and resist it, yet was still sent reeling, blood spewing forth from his mouth. The stone man beside him was momentarily taken aback, then erupted in wild laughter. So, the holy light path cannot withstand the might of thunder. Thunder is the most potent and unyielding force in existence, capable of shattering all. The divine patterns upon the stone man's form shimmered as he raised his right hand to the heavens, proclaiming divine punishment. He was born of the essence of heaven and earth's will, possessing the pathways of all things, able to summon extraordinary powers. At this moment, the already fearsome divine punishment was further amplified by the stone man's enhancement. Yet, Nangonghao remained undeterred, persistently etching and replicating the divine patterns. Lines of divine symbols flickered and took shape upon his body, emanating waves of terrifying power. The chaotic phenomena were cleaved asunder by the thunder. For this was a force capable of rending worlds. The spectators observed with growing concern, particularly the Little Peng King and the Swordfang White Tiger. This is bad. That fellow is replicating the divine patterns to augment himself. Look, his locking heaven chains are already cracking. Curse it, let's strike together. All-powerful beings of the Hongmeng Demon Sea, let us slay Nangonghao. The Little Peng King cast aside his pride, knowing he could not allow Nangonghao to unravel the azure locking heaven chains. Otherwise, this individual would undoubtedly ascend to sainthood. A being capable of sending saints flying, even a saint himself, would spell disaster if he attained that level. Chapter 134. The One-Star Saint Realm, Invincible Boom. The three formidable beings surged forth, intent on exterminating the monstrous Nangonghao. The other entities of the Hongmeng Demon Sea, gripped by fear, understood the calamity that would ensue should Nangonghao ascend. Thus, they ceased their passive observation and joined in the assault. As Nangonghao was besieged by countless beings, Nangong Wushuang immediately sought to leave the heavenly ladder to offer protection. However, he was restrained by the Jin Shijun, who calmly advised, "Do not interfere in the matters of the master." Nangong Wushuang furrowed his brow, but ultimately refrained from intervening, recalling that Nangonghao had a knack for transforming peril into safety. Meanwhile, Situ Rue and Qin Yin'er could no longer remain idle and wished to assist. Yet at that moment, a vast golden light surged forth, enveloping Nangonghao. The onlookers were taken aback. Was that the Enlightenment golden light? Incredible. It was as if they could hear the shattering of their own Tao hearts. This was too much. Nangonghao's origins were already formidable, his talents prodigious. And now, he had been graced with the divine Enlightenment golden light? In comparison to the radiant figure of Nangonghao bathed in golden luminescence, many felt unworthy of cultivation, even unworthy of existence. Countless assaults rained down upon Nangonghao, yet he remained unscathed. The Enlightenment golden light protected those in the midst of enlightenment from all forms of attack. Even the divine punishment seemed somewhat diminished in its potency at this moment. Qin Yin'er laughed gleefully. "Stone man, did you truly believe you were the sole favorite of heaven and earth? My brother Hao is also shielded by the will of heaven and earth. None can harm him." Hearing this, the stone man nearly spat blood in frustration. How infuriating! Crack! The sound of a locking heaven chain shattering echoed forth. The fifth azure locking heaven chain ultimately succumbed to the power of the divine patterns and broke apart. Subsequently, the chaotic phenomena swirling around Nangonghao erupted, releasing a stream of azure light. That azure light entwined around Nangonghao, eventually transforming into a blue lotus above his head. The chaotic blue lotus circled Nangonghao as radiant light cascaded from the heavens, accompanied by the melodic chanting of the great Tao, enveloped in endless reverberations of the Tao. This was the chaotic blue lotus. Such an extraordinary phenomenon. The azure locking heaven chains, so challenging to unravel, had ultimately rewarded Nangonghao with this magnificent boon. It is said that before the era of the Great Wilderness, the universe was shrouded in chaos. Within that chaos, a blue lotus was birthed. One day, a figure emerged from the lotus, known as Pangu. Pangu split the heavens and the earth, creating numerous worlds, and is revered as the god of creation. At this moment, the chaotic blue lotus hovered above Nangonghao, the very existence that nurtured the great god Pangu. It floated gracefully, exuding azure rays of light, and merely gazing upon it allowed many beings to attain enlightenment and even elevate their realms. Naturally, Nangonghao reaped even greater benefits. acquiring a profound technique passed down from it, the Qing Tianda Dao Ju. This technique would enable Nan Gonghao to refine his internal world, transforming him into a god of creation. At the saintly stage, the paramount task was to open up one's internal world. Crack! The sound of shattering echoed as the small world Nan Gonghao had previously controlled exploded. However, upon its destruction, it transformed into pure power, merging into Nan Gonghao's body, seeking to meld into his internal world. Typically, this process would demand considerable time. Many prodigies would find themselves stymied at this juncture. For the cultivation of an internal world necessitates the comprehension of myriad orders to sustain it. Not everyone possesses the abundance of order that Nan Gonghao does, especially since his father had recently procured a plethora of it from the young supreme of the Fox clan to bestow upon him. Nevertheless, Nan Gonghao did not rely on those so-called orders. Even the order of time paled in comparison to the chaotic blue lotus. With a rush, the chaotic blue lotus transformed into azure light, burrowing into Nan Gonghao's body, swiftly aiding him in creating a small world within his chest. Thus, Nan Gonghao effortlessly ascended in realm, becoming a one-star saint. The saintly realm consists of 9 stages, from 1 star to 9 star, with each stage containing 5 sublevels: early, mid, late, complete, and pseudo-saint. The 9 stars and 5 levels signify that once a saint reaches the pinnacle of 9 stars, they may be referred to as the supreme sovereign. However, ascending within the saintly tier is exceedingly arduous, as it requires extensive nurturing of the internal world. This explains why, in previous realms, whenever Nan Gonghao broke through, he would invariably reach the pinnacle. Yet upon breaking into the saintly tier, he could only temporarily embody a 1-star saint. Yet Nan Gonghao paid no heed to this, instead opening his eyes and gazing at the throng of adversaries assailing him. It was time to repay their assaults. Boom! Thunder descended from the heavens. This was the punishment of the celestial body, breaking the locking heaven chains. At this moment, the surroundings transformed into a sea of thunder, engulfing numerous beings. Only upon the heavenly ladder could one maintain a sanctuary. Amidst the resounding thunder, Nan Gonghao vanished and reappeared beside the little Peng King, who was desperately resisting the thunder. Nan Gonghao struck with a punch. His power had transcended the true dragon's might. He now wielded the power of an entire world. The force of one world crashing upon a single being was nothing short of terrifying. Though the little Peng King was also a 1-star saint, he was bound and constrained by the thunder, rendering him no match. A piercing scream escaped his lips as he coughed up blood, unable to withstand a single exchange. Simultaneously, a colossal hand reached from the direction of the Kunpeng clan, seizing the little Peng King. For 300 years, our clan shall not invade the eastern desolate domain. The spectators were left in shock. The Kunpeng clan was backing down, seeking to exchange this concession for the life of the little Peng King. Nan Gonghao smirked mockingly, but did not hasten to strike the little Peng King. Instead, he pivoted and delivered a powerful kick towards the Swordfang White Tiger. Crack! The sound of 2 sharp cracks echoed as the Swordfang White Tiger's 2 fangs shattered in response. Those were treasures harder than imperial artifacts. Yet they had been effortlessly broken by a single kick. The Jinya Baihu, racked with both pain and fury, roared, "I shall fight you to the bitter end." With a resounding crash, countless metallic particles coalesced into a mighty sword, descending upon Nan Gonghao. This strike was truly capable of splitting heaven and earth, a force that could make gods and demons tremble. However, Nan Gonghao remained unfazed as a chaotic azure lotus blossomed above him, its petals unfurling like tender blooms in early June, delicate yet pitiable. To any observer, it seemed as though this azure lotus would be cleaved in 2, leaving petals strewn across the ground. Yet, the reality was far different. When the heavy sword struck the azure lotus, it was swiftly disassembled and devoured. Such a terrifying assault could challenge even a 2-star saint, yet a mere lotus was able to consume it effortlessly. The onlookers' pupils constricted, their fear of Nan Gonghao intensifying. "Stay and become my steed, or face death." The azure light radiated from above him, enveloping the Jinya Baihu. The white tiger, gripped by terror, felt as though it would be consumed at any moment. "I am a descendant of the divine beast Baihu. How dare you lay hands upon me? The heavens will not tolerate this." The Jinya Baihu cried in fright. Nan Gonghao's gaze turned icy. "It appears you have chosen death." The azure lotus contracted, wielding an immense force that pressed upon the Baihu, causing its metallic-laden, sturdy body to emit sounds of impending fracture. Faced with the threat of annihilation, the Baihu finally succumbed to fear, realizing there was no one to rescue it, and hastily pleaded, "I am willing to become your steed. I am willing." Nan Gonghao snorted coldly, temporarily sparing the Baihu, before redirecting his attention to the stone man. The stone man, crafted from spirit coin ore, was a true treasure, especially with its intricate divine patterns. "You shall not escape me." The stone man, possessing its own unique evasion technique, self-destructed, scattering into a shower of spirit coins. While a core force took advantage of the chaos to flee, Nan Gonghao chose not to pursue. He understood that capturing such an entity was no easy feat. Moreover, the stone man's origins were profound, indicating a destiny brimming with fortune. It would be far more advantageous to keep it as a guide for treasure hunting. Chapter 135. The Overlooked Nan Gonghao. Nan Gonghao effortlessly dispatched and intimidated 3 peerless prodigies, leaving the crowd in shock. Yet, he did not cease his actions, surveying the myriad beings of the Hongmeng Demon Sea around him, as an extraordinary power surged forth from his being. This power seemed to embody the very will of heaven and earth, swirling in the air and instilling fear in all present. Although the saint-level experts had melded their miniature worlds into their own bodies, they only grew stronger, for their comprehension of the world was profound and formidable. Without the need to summon their miniature worlds to ensnare their foes, Nan Gonghao merely extended his hand, instantaneously isolating a 100-mile radius from the surrounding world. This meant that within this area, he had established his absolute domain, capable of controlling all forces. Heavenly punishment. Nan Gonghao uttered these words with a calm demeanor. Thunder rumbled violently as lightning cascaded from the heavens, enveloping all living beings within a 100-mile radius in a tempest of electricity. This terrifying force seemed capable of annihilating the world, instilling an overwhelming sense of helplessness and dread in all creatures. They dared not flee, nor had anywhere to escape, left only to witness the descent of the lightning and meet their demise. "No, Master, we are of the human race," cried the beings of humanity, encircled by the tempest of lightning, pleading in terror. Yet, the lightning did not strike them. Instead, it precisely targeted every creature of the Hongmeng Demon Sea. Even if a demon being stood mere inches away from a human, they were still accurately obliterated. This was the dominion power of a saint-level expert over the heavens and earth. Only those extraordinary prodigies might escape. Ordinary beings were doomed. Moreover, within the realm governed by Nan Gonghao, even the mists of the Hongmeng Demon Sea could not encroach. Nan Gonghao effortlessly exterminated tens of thousands of demon beings, then coldly declared, "From this day forth, trade, marriage, and cooperation between the Hongmeng Demon Sea and the Eastern Wasteland are permitted, but war shall not be tolerated. Does anyone oppose?" His voice resonated powerfully, reaching far and wide. Nan Gonghao was aware that all could hear him. The expressions of those who listened shifted dramatically. Some marveled at his audacity, others felt fear, while some harbored resentment. From the depths of the Hongmeng Demon Sea, a disdainful voice emerged. "You have merely attained sainthood, and yet you dare to act so brazenly? One might mistake you for an emperor." Nan Gonghao's eyes turned frigid as he pinpointed the source of the voice, then struck out with an open palm from afar. That hand rapidly enlarged in mid-air, capable of blotting out the sun, imbued with the power to obliterate worlds. "A mere 1-star saint dares to be presumptuous? I shall extinguish you." The disdainful voice from the depths of the Hongmeng Demon Sea erupted again, filled with explosive rage. Reciprocating with a palm strike of its own, the opponent was at least a 3-star saint. Boom! The 2 palms collided. The massive hand summoned by Nan Gonghao shimmered with divine patterns before forcefully crushing the 3-star saint's hand, sending it crashing down, accompanied by a wretched scream. That 3-star saint was obliterated from a considerable distance. In an instant, all onlookers gasped in disbelief. How could a newly ascended 1-star saint annihilate an established 3-star saint? It was utterly inconceivable. Yet it had transpired. Nan Gonghao, however, bore an expression of nonchalance as he solemnly stated, "I reiterate, there shall be no further wars between the Hongmeng Demon Sea and the Eastern Wasteland. Those who oppose, step forward." The mocking voices had diminished significantly. Nan Gonghao's extraordinary and ruthless methods had instilled fear in many powerful figures. Although the 2 great beast clans and royal families had not openly rejected him, they had also not affirmed his decree. Clearly, they were somewhat hesitant. After all, the Ascension Pavilion was still present. who could ascertain its circumstances. Just then, another figure ascended the Ascension Pavilion. It was Nangong Wushuang. Having trained for 8 lifetimes, she possessed extraordinary talent and formidable strength. However, upon reaching the Ascension Pavilion, she too encountered the same result. Nangong Wushuang expressed surprise. Is it not time for the Ascension Pavilion to open? What is it waiting for? Upon hearing this, the crowd of onlookers displayed expressions of realization. Could it be that Nan Gonghao had previously ascended but was denied entry? It was not that the Ascension Pavilion rejected him. Rather, it was still not time for its activation. At this revelation, the Nangong family members felt a sense of vindication. How does it matter if Chu Xiaoyuan was favored by the Sword Sect? He still cannot ascend, mocked a messenger from the Nangong family. The envoy from Dongqing City remained unfazed. Do not forget, you have offended the holy demon sect, and to this day, no supreme power has sought to recruit your family as saint. This remark cut deep. Logically, Nan Gonghao's strength and talent should have made him the target of fervent competition among the 7 supreme powers. Yet why had no one spoken up? Subsequently, several others ascended the pavilion. Zhuang Yuanjun, Yin Wushuang, Qin Shuyao, and several other unfamiliar prodigies. Upon witnessing this scene, many seasoned powerhouses could not help but express their admiration. Indeed, this was an era of great contention. Previously, the Ascension Pavilion rarely appeared, and even when it did, only 1 or 2 would ascend. Now, however, multiple individuals had succeeded, and many more prodigies had yet to receive word and attempt to ascend. It was easy to envision that as more prodigies arrived, even more would ascend. Soon after, these prodigies were fiercely courted by various factions. Notably, the 7 supreme powers of Zhongzhou were relentlessly vying for their allegiance. Even the Qinji Pavilion made its move to recruit Zhuang Yuanjun. Unlike the other factions, however, the representatives of Qinji Pavilion sought Nan Gonghao's permission before attempting to take Zhuang Yuanjun away. As the prodigies were successively claimed, even Qin Shuyao was courted by one of the 7 supreme powers, the illustrious Yingve. Yet, Nan Gonghao remained an afterthought, with no one seeking him out. Many felt puzzled and embarrassed for him. However, Nan Gonghao remained unfazed as he gazed at the Shengren Mo Yuan, which had been subdued by Nan Gongta. Nan Gongtua, please hand it over to me. I happen to have some matters to resolve at the Dozhan Demon Hall. After a moment's hesitation, Nan Gongtua tossed the Shengren Mo Yuan over and proceeded to ascend the heavenly ladder. Naturally, he could reach the summit with ease. This time, it was the Kuo Dao Men that sought to ally with Nan Gongtua. Kuo Dao Men is one of the 7 most formidable powers in Zhongzhou, albeit ranked at the very bottom. They possess a transcendent technique related to space, which no one has managed to cultivate to a profound level. With his innate third eye and inherent spatial order, Nan Gongtua was more than qualified to cultivate that technique, potentially leading Kuo Dao Men to glory. Nan Gongtua hesitated, uncertain if he should agree. Yet, Nan Gonghao, holding the Shengren Mo Yuan, remarked indifferently, "Go ahead. Just don't forget that your surname is still Nan Gonghao." Though Nan Gongtua was reluctant to be subordinate to Nan Gonghao, the latter was indeed a divine child, whose words carried the weight of a family head. Furthermore, the combat prowess Nan Gongao had just exhibited filled Nan Gongtua with trepidation. He realized that in a true contest, he might not be Nan Gonghao's match, so it would be wise to first hone his skills at Kuo Dao Men. Thus, Nan Gongtua was persuaded to leave. This indicated that the 7 formidable powers did not harbor animosity towards the Nan Gong family. Rather, they simply looked down upon Nan Gonghao, unwilling to recruit him. A chorus of derision ensued, proclaiming that no matter how impressive Nan Gonghao was, he could not surpass the might of Zhongzhou as top powers, which had produced several emperors and possessed far greater insight. Their disdain for Nan Gonghao was a clear indication of his limited potential for growth. In Chapter 136, the 3 dominant powers pose a challenge. Could Nan Gonghao truly be overlooked? With such terrifying talent and equally prodigious parents, as well as the status of an heir to the imperial throne, one would think even the ancient entities from the outer realms would be tempted. However, the crux of the matter lay in the fact that Nan Gonghao was a Tianqian divine body. Despite his ability to unravel the 5 heavenly lock chains through various clever maneuvers, those from the truly powerful factions understood that the first few chains could be unbound by various means, such as using divine inscriptions akin to those of the Stone Man, or harnessing the power of slaughter. However, the 6th heavenly lock chain was peculiar, for it bore a curse. This was a closely guarded secret. Although the Nan Gong family was an immortal force, They were unaware of the secret of the curse due to the remote location of the Eastern Wasteland. Many years ago, there existed another Tianqian divine body that was relentlessly pursued while slaughtering countless beings to unlock the 7 heavenly lock chains, ultimately achieving the status of an emperor through bloodshed. What was crucial was that this emperor, at the very end of his life, experienced a moment of conscience. He believed the Tianqian divine body's excessively murderous nature was a grave sin. Consequently, he employed supreme power to curse the Tianqian divine body, decreeing that any Tianqian divine body must never unlock the 6th heavenly lock chain, for to do so would elevate them to the realm of the Saint King, allowing access to the void beyond. The aforementioned emperor had achieved his path to enlightenment through slaughtering countless beings in the outer realms. Thus, as long as Nan Gonghao could not enter the void beyond, he would be unable to slay too many beings. Even if he annihilated the entirety of Guangyuan Tianyu, he could not attain enlightenment unless he surpassed that emperor's strength at the moment of unbinding the 6th lock. However, that was an impossibility. Therefore, it was destined that Nan Gonghao would forever remain a mere saint-level cultivator. In a remote area like the Eastern Wasteland, possessing a saint would be considered quite remarkable. However, for the paramount powers of Zhongzhou, it held little significance. Moreover, Nan Gonghao had offended the Shima sect, and there was no need for them to oppose the Shima sect for a youth lacking in prospects. The culmination of these various factors led to Nan Gonghao's disdain and disregard by these powers. A powerful figure from the Shima sect mocked from afar, Nan Gonghao. You pride yourself on being unparalleled, yet no one seeks to ally with you. How does that feel? With an air of indifference, Nan Gonghao replied, It is merely Zhongzhou. My aspirations extend to the stars and the sea. The Shima sect strongman laughed maniacally, reveling in his successful provocation of Nan Gonghao. Do you know that with that statement, you have offended the 7 foremost powers of Zhongzhou? Nan Gonghao shook his head dismissively, pardon my frankness. But the powers of Zhongzhou are merely short-sighted individuals. Did you hear that? That was a true offense to the 7 great powers. You, a mere lackey, wish to trick me into offending them? How pathetic. Although Nan Gonghao claimed he did not require the alliances of the 7 foremost powers of Zhongzhou, the absence of such alliances did indeed leave him somewhat displeased. Thus he retorted sharply. The assembled beings gasped in astonishment, as none had anticipated such bold defiance from Nan Gonghao against the mighty powers of Zhongzhou. The Shima sect strongman was taken aback, realizing his cunning scheme had backfired, leaving him uncertain whether to feel elated or enraged. Just then, from the direction of the sword sect came a chilling voice. Chu Xiaoyuan can slay you within 3 years. Clearly, Nan Gonghao's words had displeased the sword sect. On the surface, it appeared that the sword sect was not bullying the weak, but rather allowing the currently inferior Chu Xiaoyuan to take action, which seemed fair and honorable. Yet in truth, they recognized Chu Xiaoyuan's deep-seated hatred for Nan Gonghao. Thus, they established this agreement, which would not only motivate Chu Xiaoyuan to diligently cultivate, but also provide a means for retribution. Nan Gonghao furrowed his brow. 3 years? By then, I will be in the outer realms. Can your sword sect keep up? The sword sect offered no response. Chu Xiaoyuan coldly glared at Nan Gonghao. In 1 year, I shall reach the peak of the 9-star saint level, and then we shall fight. Nan Gonghao expressed his dissatisfaction. Fine, barely acceptable. Yet at that moment, a voice from Kwa Dao Min interjected. Nan Gong Tuo can subdue you within 3 months. The expressions of Nan Gong Tuo and many members of the Nan Gong family changed drastically. However, Nan Gonghao merely nodded nonchalantly. That seems reasonable. Are there any other factions that wish to speak? The other factions remained silent. It was not out of fear, but rather disdain. A mere Nan Gonghao did not warrant a collective response from the 7 foremost powers of Zhongzhou. Yet a strong man from the Shima sect could not resist adding, Nan Gonghao, you are far too arrogant. My Shima sect's Mozi will soon emerge from seclusion, and then he shall subdue you. Excellent. Let us make it swift. Nan Gonghao replied readily. To him, these were not challenges, but rather gifts from the charmingly formidable powers of Zhongzhou. When the time came to subdue those like the Mozi, what treasures would he not acquire? With a smile upon his face, Nan Gonghao observed that no one else dared to challenge him. He beckoned the distant Bai Hu. Let us proceed to the Dozhan Demon Hall and see how many treasures they shall offer to redeem these 3 fellows. The Jianya Bai Hu paused. Aren't we taking the void worship? Without an emperor artifact, venturing into the ancient royal family's lair is tantamount to courting death. Nan Gonghao shook his head. He understood that even with the void worship and the Han Tian bell, the Dozhan Mo Yuan clan would still intervene when required, and it was uncertain if they could prevail. The key to this visit was to rely on intellect. Nangong Hao mounted the Bai Hu and departed like a shooting star. Qin Yin and the others wished to follow, but Nangong Wushuang urged them to stay behind, stating sternly, "Do not cause any disturbances. Focus on cultivating here on the heavenly ladder." Although the heavenly hall had not yet been opened, the heavenly ladder was indeed a sacred place for cultivation. After all, the heavenly ladder was not only suffused with the essence of the Tao and resonating with the laws, but also exerted immense pressure to aid in refining the body. Qin Yin and the others understood that their presence would be of no assistance, and with Nangong Wushuang's insistence, they had no choice but to remain behind. Nangong Hao arrived at the outskirts of the Dawuzin Mayuan tribe's territory. The Dawuzin Mayuan clan had long been anticipating his arrival and sent a representative to greet him. Unfazed, Nangong Hao followed them into the heart of their domain. The true dwelling place of the Dawuzin Mayuan was an expansive valley, surprisingly picturesque, adorned with ancient trees, cascading waterfalls, and even playful little monkeys. It bore a striking resemblance to a celestial paradise, quite unlike the chaotic realm of the Hongmeng Mo Hai. Upon arriving, while surveying the surroundings, Nangong Hao suddenly heard the cold voice of the guiding monkey. He looked up to find himself standing before a towering waterfall, with crystal-clear waters thundering down into a vast lake. Curiously, his eyes gleamed with golden light as he utilized his heavenly eye to discern a cave hidden behind the waterfall. A realm of wonders awaited him. "Let's proceed," Nangong Hao said calmly. The white tiger leaped through the curtain of water, entering the cave. To his surprise, the cave was immaculate, even exuding a refreshing fragrance. Nothing like the untidy habitat one would expect from monkeys. Upon closer inspection, he noted that the surroundings were adorned with various decorations typical of human dwellings, complete with tables and chairs, and numerous female monkeys serving as attendants. An array of exquisite fruits was also present. It was indeed remarkable for a place inhabited by extraordinary beasts to possess such an ethereal ambience. Initially, Nangong Hao had braced himself for a filthy environment in the depths of the forest, but now he felt a sense of relief, especially after entering the cave. He was greeted by the voice of the system. Rewards have arrived. Chapter 137. Acquisition of rewards. Is that a celestial being? Congratulations on successful sign-in. Reward: God-slaying and demon-exterminating fist. The system announced. Nangong Hao glanced at the martial art technique and felt quite satisfied. This was an exceedingly formidable power, said to originate from the celestial realm, capable of slaying gods and vanquishing demons, even suppressing the will of the universe. The terrifying nature of the will of the universe had been evidenced by the divine patterns on the stone man and the invincible defensive golden light he had wielded. Now, this technique would enable him to unleash a force surpassing that will, allowing him to attack, suppress the masses, and annihilate gods and demons. Should he encounter the stone man again, he could effortlessly shatter its form. Even against cultivators wielding similar golden light, Nangong Hao would prevail. The prospect was indeed terrifying. The sign-in location has refreshed. The next sign-in site, Death Valley. The system reminded him. Death Valley, the perilous zone that even void warships could suffer damage upon entering. Manga's initial excitement quickly turned to dismay. Each sign-in location seemed more treacherous than the last. However, he recognized that the Death Valley contained the power of the temporal path. To enhance his mastery over the order of time, he had to venture there. Moreover, after acquiring extensive knowledge from the sage, he had unraveled the secret of the curse of the sixth chain. Although Nangong Hao was proud and confident, he was not foolish. He understood that challenging formidable opponents beyond one's level was possible, yet it was utterly impossible for a saint-level cultivator to confront an emperor. The emperor's realm had reached a terrifying pinnacle, and apart from time itself, nothing could overthrow an emperor. Thus, he had to acquire the power of the temporal path to unlock the enigma of the sixth chain. As he contemplated, he approached a stone table and took a seat. Opposite him sat an old monkey, its brows and beard white, yet its eyes sparkled like twin stars, making it difficult to gaze directly at. A powerful figure of the sage king level. In an instant, Nangong Hao assessed the old monkey's strength. The old monkey, with an indifferent tone, stated, "Sage, our Dawuzin Mayuan clan values directness. Speak your demands, and we shall consider releasing our clan's prodigy. Complete Dawuzin martial arts manual, 10 sacred herbs, and a promise to never invade the Dongwang domain." Nangong Hao asserted, pausing for thought. For now, those will suffice. The old monkey's expression darkened upon hearing this. He had braced himself for Naga's audacious demands, yet he hadn't anticipated such insatiable greed. The Dawuzan martial arts were the foundation of their clan. Surrendering it would be tantamount to relinquishing their heritage. As for the sacred herbs, they were treasures of unparalleled value. Even a single one would incite fierce competition among the 7 supreme powers of Zhongzhou. To demand 10 herbs outright was indeed audacious. The promise to refrain from invading the Dongwang domain was negotiable, for while Nangahao was bound by the constraints of the heavenly punishment body, Nanga's prowess was still formidable. Even this old monkey felt a chill of trepidation. With the 2 of them guarding, any attempt to invade the Dongwang domain would lead to dire consequences. Within 30,000 years, our clan shall not invade the Dongwang domain. If sacred herbs are unavailable, we can substitute with a single spiritual herb. The Dawuzan martial arts cannot be granted, but what you take shall remain yours, the old monkey stipulated. Your terms are excessively harsh. You must recognize that one of your 4 prodigies has already perished, leaving only 3 in my possession. Prodigies can be cultivated anew, but the Dawuzan martial arts are an inheritance. Do you truly believe I would part with it? As for the sacred herbs, it is evident that my clan cannot procure them. The old monkey countered. Nan Gonghao stroked his chin, slightly hesitating. The matter of the precious herbs is negotiable. There should be a sacred herb nearing maturity in Death Valley. At that time, you can assist me in obtaining it as a form of debt repayment. Regarding the Dawuzan martial arts, if you can provide a comparable technique of the same level, that would suffice. As for the promise of non-invasion, if you say 30,000 years, then let it be 30,000 years. I consider that fair enough. In truth, the final condition was merely an addendum. For Nan Gonghao was confident that 30,000 years would suffice for him to ascend to immortality. Once he became a top-tier figure, even the Dawuzan Miyuan clan would hesitate to invade, regardless of any oath sworn. The old monkey chuckled in frustration. You consider yourself fair? I would rather use the assurance of non-invasion to offset the other 2 demands. Nan Gonghao raised his hands in surrender. Does this imply we have reached an impasse? The old monkey narrowed his eyes, its aura turning perilous. Let me be frank. You will not leave our clan, not even with an imperial artifact. Therefore, you should relinquish our clan's prodigy, and we shall establish a good rapport for mutual support in the future. Nan Gonghao scoffed. He understood that the so-called mutual support was merely an excuse for the Dawuzan Miyuan clan to gradually encroach upon the Mongong family. Since they were unwilling to negotiate sincerely, he would take his leave. When you have deliberated thoroughly, come to seek me at the Mongong family. Nan Gonghao rose indifferently, preparing to depart. Impudent, the old monkey roared, unleashing its power to the utmost, launching a fist towards him. This punch bore world-shattering force, shaking the very fabric of space and fracturing the ground, obliterating everything in its path. In the old monkey's view, Nan Gonghao, a mere 1-star saint, was undoubtedly no match for it. Moreover, the 2 imperial artifacts of the Mongong family were too distant to provide aid in time. Yet Nan Gonghao did not evade. Instead, he unleashed the newly acquired god-slaying and demon-exterminating fist. With the heavens above and the earth beneath, accompanied by a fearsome shadow, he struck fiercely. The old monkey's pupils contracted, its expression shifting in astonishment. What an overwhelming force! Vast, terrifying, beyond imagination. With a thunderous clash, their fists met, illuminating the cave with blinding brilliance, unleashing an immense shockwave. The entire cavern was instantly shattered by the residual force of their confrontation. Even the mountain itself trembled violently, as if on the verge of collapse. The outcome of the duel between the 2 resulted in Nan Gonghao spitting blood and retreating, even propelled out of the cave by sheer force. The old ape was left astonished. As a sage king, and a standout among them, he typically overwhelmed those of equal rank with a single strike. Yet here he was, stymied by a mere 1-star sage. Although he had not exerted his full strength and Nan Gonghao had sustained injuries, the latter should have perished in this encounter. The old ape, shaken, narrowed his eyes slightly as he observed the departing Nan Gonghao, making no effort to call for an interruption or pursuit. This young man, if not for the Tianqin Sheni, one could hardly fathom how far he might grow. Before he could finish his thoughts, a chilling voice interrupted, inquiring why he had deliberately let him go. The old ape replied indifferently, stating that he initially intended to eliminate him, but the young man's prowess had altered his decision. Confused, the voice asked for clarification. The old ape expressed his desire to take a gamble. wagering that Nangong Hao could transcend the curse of the great emperor and emerge as a formidable being, to which the Dojang Mayuan would willingly serve as his vassals. Taking pride in that association. What? You are mad. Our clan has no shortage of prodigies. Why should we serve a human as slaves? The voice erupted in fury. The old ape sighed, acknowledging that he once valued his kin, but they were no match for Nangong Hao, now or in the future. In this era of great contention, matters were not as simple as one might think. Similarly, the Tianqian Shini was far more complex than imagined. Thus, this young man warranted a grand gamble regarding his future. As he spoke, the old ape's mind lingered on the shadow that had appeared behind Nangong Hao when he struck. Was that a celestial being? His heart trembled. Chapter 138. Hundun Qinglian, I possess hundreds of great avenues. Nangong Hao swiftly took flight on the back of the White Tiger after leaving the Dojang Modian. The White Tiger was filled with trepidation. Despite its noble lineage, it was still young and weak, and in a real confrontation, it could not withstand the might of the Dojang Modian. Witnessing Nangong Hao provoke a sage king without the accompaniment of an emperor weapon incited its fury. Could you perhaps tone it down a bit? The White Tiger gritted its teeth. Nangong Hao replied calmly, I have already restrained myself. Otherwise, I would have sought every means to eliminate that old ape. The White Tiger was infuriated, exclaiming, Do you think this is the ladder to heaven? The reason you could slay a sage king and even defeat a quasi-emperor on the ladder is that it restricted the power of those formidable beings, and they were merely remnants of their past souls. True sage kings are beyond your imagination. With a mere finger, they could extinguish you. Nang hao ziplit nun jialen. Am I dead? The once furious and terrified White Tiger found itself at a loss. Indeed, a sage king could obliterate a sage, yet Nangong Hao was still alive. It then recalled the astonishing punch Nangong Hao had just delivered, trembling in its heart as it stammered, Did you summon a celestial being just now? That was not a celestial being. It was a deity, the creator deity. Nangong Hao replied calmly. When he executed the Shirshan Mianma Chuan, the Hundun Qinglian within him had also stirred, bestowing upon him a unique power. Only the Pangadashan could surpass the will of the heavens. He pondered whether his Hundun Qinglian might give birth to a Pangadashan. As Nangong Hao contemplated, he began to consolidate all that he had just acquired. He had yet to properly stabilize his realm after breaking through. The sage realm differed from others. It involved shattering the small world cultivated within the monarch realm and integrating it into one's being. Then, through this internal world, one would connect with and comprehend the Tianyu world. Practitioners would emulate the structure of the Tianyu world to refine their internal small worlds. The method of perfecting this internal small world involved utilizing the ordered divine chains. The sage realm required comprehending these ordered divine chains and imprinting them onto one's internal small world to facilitate its enhancement. Having just broken through to one-star sage, Nangong Hao had not yet advanced further, as he had not had the time to inscribe the ordered divine chains onto his internal small world, impeding his growth. While seated upon the back of the White Tiger, he turned his gaze inward, examining his small world. Once vast, it had now shrunk to the size of a fist. Yet its strength remained undiminished. Supported by the Hundun Qinglian, it glowed with a verdant light, exuding a divine aura. Nangong Hao sought to imprint the dozens of order divine chains he had mastered onto this small world. Strangely, aside from the order of time, the order of causality, and the order of devouring, three supreme orders, he found that he could not inscribe any others. What was going on? Nangong Hao frowned, realizing that this matter pertained to his very existence. He hurriedly delved into research, only to be astonished by the outcome. Each time he attempted to inscribe an order divine chain onto his small world, the verdant light emanating from the Hundun Qinglian forcibly erased it. Why would the Hundun Qinglian reject these orders? Nangong Hao shifted his focus to the Hundun Qinglian, studying it intently. Soon he was left dumbfounded. The Hundun Qinglian contained an even more formidable force of the Tao. No, that was incorrect. It was not just one force, but many. Nangong Hao understood that his talents were extraordinary. Yet, after the blue lock of heaven was broken, the Hundun Qinglian had become almost unfathomably powerful. Each leaf of the Hundun Qinglian represented a distinct great avenue. Laws, orders, and great avenues. This was the hierarchy of power within the Tianyu world. There were countless laws and 3,000 orders. Theoretically, there were also 3,000 great avenues, as great avenues were merely advanced versions or complete forms of order power. However, typically, even if one possessed numerous orders, they would ultimately only embody a single great avenue. This was due to the arduous and challenging process of comprehending a great avenue. Thus, many practitioners, upon reaching the Sage King realm and needing to comprehend a great avenue, would generally choose the most complete or favored order power to evolve into a great avenue. Moreover, a significant reason for this limitation was that their internal small worlds could not accommodate multiple great avenues. Even the most refined small worlds of many Sage Kings could only withstand the power of a single great avenue. This was why countless practitioners spent their lives cultivating just one path. Yet now, for Nangong Hao, comprehending the power of a great avenue felt as effortless as drinking water. As for his small world, nurtured under the Hunden Qinglian, it could likely endure any number of great avenues. Nangong Hao could not help but feel fortunate. Having stumbled upon a treasure, he would soon possess hundreds of great avenues. Just imagine, in future battles, while others wield a single great avenue, Nangong Hao could unleash hundreds. It would surely overwhelm any practitioner. As he pondered this, a smile graced his face. He intended to comprehend the great avenue power that only Sage Kings could cultivate while still in the Sage realm. However, with hundreds of great avenues at his disposal, he found himself momentarily perplexed about which one to cultivate first. Perhaps he should begin by exploring the avenue of time? Enthusiastically, Nangong Hao selected the leaf representing the avenue of time. Upon entering the essence of the leaf with his soul, he was taken aback. What a feeble great avenue! The time avenue contained within this leaf was pitifully weak, leading Nangong Hao to suspect whether the Hunden Qinglian was an imitation. Yet, he quickly comprehended the situation. The Hunden Qinglian was newly birthed and still in its infancy, thus its power was limited. To strengthen it, sufficient energy must be provided. This energy would not be typical spiritual energy, but rather derived from great avenue power or order power. In simpler terms, Nangong Hao would need to seize the power of others to enhance himself. Nangong Hao glanced down at the white tiger beneath him and instructed, "Summon forth your order power." Baihu found the situation somewhat perplexing. "What is going on? Stop the chatter." Nangong Hao playfully tapped Baihu on the head. "Ow!" Baihu yelped in pain, feeling quite aggrieved, yet dared not resist, dutifully summoning his power of order. Nangong Hao conjured the Chaos Qinglian. The lotus, emanating a misty azure light, blossomed and devoured the order power. "My strength!" Baihu exclaimed in astonishment. As the Chaos Qinglian absorbed this power, it visibly grew even more formidable. The petals, embodying the golden Tao, shone with increased brilliance. Indeed, the Chaos Qinglian seemed to augment its strength in this manner. Nangong Hao reflected. It appears this journey to the Valley of Death is essential. Once it devours the temporal Tao of the Valley of Death, the Chaos Qinglian will ascend to a significantly higher level. A smile graced Nangong Hao's face, while Baihu was filled with trepidation. To Baihu, Nangong Hao had become increasingly enigmatic. Where did this fellow acquire such immense power and treasures? Surely, this Chaos Qinglian rivals even the Imperial artifacts. Chapter 139. Forging Artifacts into Sacred Spirits. Baihu fully submits. As Nangong Hao rode Baihu back to the vicinity of the Tung Tiandian, the atmosphere had grown increasingly lively. More and more individuals had received word, eager to attempt the ascent of the Tung Tianti. Of course, even in an era of great contention, with countless prodigies, not everyone could ascend. Before the Tung Tiandian stood several unfamiliar prodigies who had just scaled the heights. On the Tung Tianti, many struggled desperately. Nangong Hao even witnessed several young prodigies, attempting to climb forcefully, burst into a mist of blood under the overwhelming pressure. Yet, who among them had a journey devoid of pressure and fear? Those prodigies gritted their teeth and pressed on. Qin Yin'er and Situ Rui were also on the steps. They had reached the 20th step, their delicate forms trembling, cherry lips stained with blood. Clearly, they had reached their limits. After all, not everyone possessed Nangong Hao's terrifying abilities to dash up the Tung Tianti. After contemplating, Nangong Hao summoned the Feng Shunbang and proclaimed loudly, "Will of heaven and earth, heed my command. Bestow upon Qin Yin'er the title of Dream Goddess." A surge of heavenly will descended, transforming into a divine crown placed upon Qin Yin'er's head. A misty radiance enveloped her, enhancing her already unparalleled beauty into an ethereal vision. As Qin Yin'er wielded the power of the Dream Order, her divine authority became further amplified. Simultaneously, a mysterious force bolstered her, transforming her into a reincarnation of a former deity, significantly enhancing her talent and strength. The once arduous journey now felt effortless for Qin Yener. It was conservatively estimated that she could ascend over 70 steps. Numerous prodigies gasped in awe and envy. They hadn't anticipated such a development. Nan Gonghao then conferred Situ Rui with a similar honor, summoning her as a goddess capable of invoking more divine beings. Many prodigies turned their gazes toward Nan Gonghao, realizing his true identity. Although the news of the ancient heavenly court's Jade Emperor being defeated had spread throughout the Guangyuan Tianyu, few knew that the one responsible was Nan Gonghao. At this moment, many beings regarded Nan Gonghao with not much gratitude, but rather with greed. They yearned to acquire the Feng Shunbang. A creature with the head of a tiger and the body of a python glared at Nan Gonghao, snarling, "Human brat, you are unworthy of that divine artifact." Nan Gonghao looked down, discovering it was a Hu Jiao, a descendant of the dragon clan resembling a hybrid of a tiger and a Jiao dragon. It was unclear how these two species intermingled and produced offspring. Hu Jiao, known for its arrogance and dominance, gazed at the Feng Shunbang with unrestrained avarice. Nan Gonghao replied coolly, "You are far too weak, lacking even the qualifications to be my steed. You dare insult me? Seek death." Hu Jiao roared, charging forward. It had only appeared after Nan Gonghao ventured into the Dozhan Mo Dian, thus had not witnessed his true strength. Undeterred, Hu Jiao lunged at Nan Gonghao, opening its maw to crush him. Nearby, a Bashi shook its head, regretting that it had been a moment too late. What a pity Hu Jiao got there first. Now, the Feng Shunbang is in Hu Jiao's possession, making it even harder to seize. Many beings who had arrived later at the Tung Tian Dian shared this sentiment. In their eyes, Hu Jiao belonged to the pinnacle of ancient beasts, a saintly entity, surely capable of easily dispatching a mere human brat. Yet, what unfolded next astounded them all. Nan Gonghao simply tossed the Feng Shunbang down, ensnaring Hu Jiao within it. "Refine it for me." After attaining the status of a saint, Nan Gonghao's control over the Feng Shunbang had grown immensely. Hu Jiao, ensnared by the Feng Shunbang, could not resist and let out a wail as it was refined. With an abundance of servants at his disposal, Nan Gonghao had no need to keep Hu Jiao. He promptly extracted Hu Jiao's Order Divine chain and infused it into his Chaos Qing Lian. To his surprise, the power of a saint proved quite effective. The strength of the Chaos Qing Lian surged further, enveloping the small world in azure light, weaving intricate azure patterns within. Nan Gonghao's own power also saw an increase, elevating him from the early stage of a one-star saint to the mid-stage. Of course, he did not waste Hu Jiao's flesh energy. He absorbed it directly through the devouring order, enhancing his physical form. Witnessing this spectacle, numerous beings below were left dumbfounded, particularly the Ba Shi, who had regretted its earlier hesitation, recoiled in fright, a chill running down its spine. This human prodigy was too formidable. Nangong Wushuang also flew over from a distance, calmly asking, "How did the negotiations go?" "They fell through. The old ape refused to accept my terms." Nan Gonghao shrugged. "What conditions did you propose?" Nangong Wushuang inquired with curiosity. "The complete version of the Dozhan Mo Gong, 10 sacred herbs, and a vow never to invade the eastern wilderness." Nangong Wushuang was left speechless. Not to mention the Dozhan Mo Yuan. Even he, as Nan Gonghao's grandfather, found the demands excessive. And 10 sacred herbs. Having lived 8 lifetimes, Nangong Wushuang had not encountered more than 3. Forget it. If negotiations fail, they will serve to guard the home. I will first go restore the Jade Emperor seal. Nan Gonghao returned directly to the Void battleship. Previously, he had inscribed divine patterns onto the Jade Emperor seal, which had been unable to withstand the pressure and had shattered. Now, it required a process of refinement to be restored. The refining process was swift. Nan Gonghao soon transformed the Jade Emperor seal into a sacred artifact, with divine patterns intertwined, capable of calling upon the will of heaven and earth for attacks. Unparalleled in might. Consequently, upon the formation of the sacred artifact, it unexpectedly summoned a heavenly tribulation. Clearly, gaining the recognition of heaven and earth was no simple feat. Nan Gonghao was unfazed, viewing the heavenly tribulation as just another trial. After all, he had endured countless strikes since childhood. How could he fear this? Yet soon, Nan Gonghao sensed something amiss. The bolts of lightning descended in torrents, resembling a downpour, nearly rivaling the thunderous punishment he had faced when shattering the celestial locking chains. Was it truly this intense? Nan Gonghao was puzzled. Why did forging an artifact provoke such ire from heaven and earth? until an otherworldly being cried out in astonishment. Sacred Spirit Tribulation. Nan Gonghao suddenly realized that his sacred artifact had evolved into a sacred spirit. What is a sacred spirit? It is a supreme treasure birthed from the essence of heaven and earth, possessing a soul. For example, that stone golem. Once such an existence is born, it cultivates rapidly, boasting immense power, and when fully matured, it can rival an emperor. Nan Gonghao had not anticipated that inscribing divine patterns onto the Jade Emperor seal would yield such an effect. Naturally, he was overjoyed. However, all other beings were left in shock. Even Bai Hu, who had been reluctantly turned into Nan Gonghao's mount, hesitated, contemplating whether to fully submit to Nan Gonghao. This fellow is truly formidable, possessing not only a fractured celestial artifact, but also the Chaos Qinglian, alongside divine assistance. Now, with the acquisition of the Holy Spirit, it is evident that even if he does not ascend to the status of an emperor, he could still wield his formidable strength to challenge one. Being a slave is indeed humiliating. However, to be a slave to a powerful being is a matter of honor. With this thought, Bai Hu felt a surge of pride, dutifully squatting beside Nan Gonghao as if he were an obedient attendant. Chapter 140. Unrest in the Valley of Death. Winds from all directions converged. Nan Gonghao ultimately withstood the Holy Spirit tribulation with remarkable ease. After all, possessing the anomaly of tribulation lightning made resisting the heavenly wrath almost effortless. The Yu Huang Yin indeed transformed into a Holy Spirit, though still in its infancy. It remained quite weak, barely capable of exhibiting a flicker of awareness, let alone engaging in complete communication. Nan Gonghao understood that nurturing such a Holy Spirit required flesh and blood energy. But where would such energy originate from? At first, Nan Gonghao glanced at Bai Hu before him. Bai Hu, sensing the scrutiny, immediately crouched down with an excessively flattering expression, which appeared rather amusing. This fellow is rather commendable, thought Nan Gonghao as he shifted his gaze elsewhere. Beside the ascending heavenly palace, there were numerous beings from other races. These entities naturally boasted powerful flesh and blood energy. Nan Gonghao's gaze locked onto the earlier provocateur, the Ba Shi. This creature, an ancient being, possessed a green snake head and a black snake body, radiating a faint yet precious light, showcasing the resilience of its corporeal form. Nan Gonghao propelled himself into the air, suddenly appearing before the Ba Shi, which was hesitating whether to ascend the heavenly ladder. Upon witnessing Nan Gonghao's sudden emergence, it was momentarily startled before turning to flee. Nan Gonghao sneered, swiftly extending his hand to grasp the Ba Shi's tail. The Ba Shi's body was slick, as if coated in oil, yet Nan Gonghao held on tightly, preventing its escape. In a desperate bid, the Ba Shi let out a long hiss and unexpectedly shed its skin. However, the skin did not soften. Instead, it turned and coiled around Nan Gonghao. It turned out that the Ba Shi possessed not only the talent for shedding skin, but could also refine the discarded skin into a treasure. The Ba Shi had feigned retreat to deceive Nan Gonghao and seize the opportunity to ensnare him with the skin of its sacred artifact. Seeing Nan Gonghao ensnared, the Ba Shi erupted in laughter, exclaiming, "Foolish boy, do you think I truly fear you? I can devour even ancient dragons. Will you compare to that?" With that, the skin opened its maw wide and swallowed Nan Gonghao whole, intending to refine him. To be fair, the snake skin was indeed formidable, truly deserving of its ancient and powerful lineage. However, Nan Gonghao merely placed his hand upon the skin, activating the Order of Time. Under the influence of temporal power, the skin rapidly lost its efficacy and disintegrated into ashes. The Ba Shi, in horror, exclaimed, "The Order of Time? This is bad." It genuinely intended to flee this time. Yet, Nan Gonghao cast the Yu Huang Yin, suppress. The Yu Huang Yin crashed down heavily upon the Ba Shi's head, producing a resounding crack. The Ba Shi let out a wail, crushed under the weight. Subsequently, the Yu Huang Yin unleashed a devouring force, draining the Ba Shi's entire reservoir of flesh and blood energy. In this manner, the Yu Huang Yin emitted a wave of discontented awareness. Not enough, not enough. Nan Gonghao sensed the dissatisfaction and surveyed his surroundings in search of further targets. The various beings nearby were startled and hastily distanced themselves from Nan Gonghao, who stood amidst a multitude of exotic creatures, bathed in divine radiance. For a moment, many were unable to discern who the true, ancient, ferocious beast was. Noticing the retreat of the surrounding beings, Nan Gonghao furrowed his brow. "Is no one planning to challenge me? Don't be timid." Many creatures retreated further, displaying expressions of panic. Without mentioning anything else, the Yu Huang Yin, now transformed into a holy spirit, was enough to deter numerous enemies of Nangong Hao. It was utterly terrifying, seeing that no one dared to challenge him. Nangong Hao felt a twinge of disappointment. Just then, an ancient barbaric bear summoned its courage and said, "Why not venture into the Valley of Death? All the prodigies have gone there." The Valley of Death? Although Nangong Hao had originally intended to go there to sign in, he had not anticipated that other prodigies would have arrived ahead of him. Nangong Wushuang also approached. "There have been recent occurrences related to your artifact refinement. It seems there is commotion in the Valley of Death, and many have already hastened there. Is it a coincidence? The system had just instructed him to sign in there, and then the Valley of Death encountered trouble? Forget it. Such matters should not be overthought. The more one contemplates, the more perilous it becomes." Nangong Hao shook his head, dismissing the thought, and turned to Nangong Wushuang. "Are you going? I have lived 8 lifetimes and have traversed all places in the Tianyu world. However, I have yet to encounter this ascending heavenly palace. Thus, I shall not wander aimlessly but wait here for its opening. Additionally, I shall have the others from the Nangong family come over for some training." Nangong Wushuang replied with a smile. In truth, he recognized that Nangong Hao's strength was now sufficient to protect himself. Hence he chose not to accompany him on his travels. Nangong Hao said little more, mounting Baihu to set off. He still did not bring along Qin Shuyao and the other women. The Valley of Death contained the power of the Path of Time. If these women entered, they could easily meet their demise. The Hongmeng Demon Sea was not far from the Valley of Death, yet it was not too close either. Fortunately, Baihu was swift. As the saying goes, clouds follow the dragon, winds follow the tiger. Although the Jinya Baihu cultivated the Order of Gold, it possessed an innate ability to control the wind. During the journey, Nangong Hao refined the 2 broken fangs of Baihu into 2 sacred artifact-level flying swords. He inscribed divine patterns upon the flying swords, enhancing their power significantly. However, ultimately, the 2 Fang artifacts did not evolve into holy spirits. It seemed that the Yu Huang Yin, being a divine gift, held potential for evolution. Nevertheless, Baihu was already very content, as he could not forge such formidable artifacts himself. Consequently, Baihu's loyalty to Nangong Hao deepened. Soon, Nangong Hao arrived at the Valley of Death. This location lay between the Nangong family and Dongqing City. It was an expansive canyon, the depths of which were shrouded in an eerie power that deterred even Holy Realm experts from approaching. Moreover, the canyon was perpetually veiled in white mist, obscuring everything within. However, just 2 days prior, the Valley of Death had suddenly trembled, causing some of the mist to dissipate and revealing a treasure within. It was a small tree, approximately the height of a person, but its crown was exceedingly lush, bearing 6 fist-sized golden fruits that radiated a precious light, unmistakably extraordinary. Upon approaching, Nangong Hao felt the Dizong Ben Yuan Dao tremble slightly from a distance, as if sensing something. This quasi-imperial artifact had hardly stirred since it had accompanied Nangong Hao. Could it be that the small tree was related to the Dizong Ben Yuan Dao? At that moment, many powerful beings had already gathered around the Valley of Death. These strong individuals included the Wu Yi tribe from the northern barbarian region, each brimming with vitality and exhibiting bizarre forms. Some had bird bodies with human faces, others possessed dragon bodies with human heads, while others were fearsome beasts, truly terrifying. There were also the Luan birds emerging from the Fire Mountain in the extreme southern lands, their bodies ablaze with roaring flames, their haughty demeanor instilling fear in many creatures. Even the Western Celestial Realm, known for its reclusiveness, had high monks arriving. These monks stood closest to the Valley of Death, some displaying excitement, others with hands clasped in reverence, while others perused ancient texts. Nangong Hao was astonished. Could it be that this small tree had connections to the Buddhist sect? Since the Valley of Death lay adjacent to the Nangong family, naturally, family members had come to escort Nangong Hao. A saint-level strongman approached respectfully and said, "Son of God, there are legends that the small tree within the Valley of Death is a supreme treasure of the Buddhist sect, the Bodhi tree." The Bodhi tree? Indeed, it is a treasure of the Buddhist sect. It is said that a certain Buddha attained enlightenment beneath its branches, and it possesses the complete legacy of a great emperor. Furthermore, the fact that this Bodhi tree remains unharmed under the dense power of time enveloping the Valley of Death further attests to its strength. The Buddhist sect must be eager to acquire it, wouldn't they? Nangong Hao recalled the words of Dizong, who once urged him to expose the conspiracy within the Buddhist sect, promising him a grand reward. This seemed like an opportune moment. Chapter 141. the evolution of temporal order, and the entry into the Valley of Death. Both banks of the Valley of Death were populated. At this moment, along the lengthy gorge, countless cultivators could be seen. These practitioners varied in strength, and although many beings were aware that the weak found it exceedingly difficult to enter the Valley of Death, that did not deter them from joining the fray. Who knew what opportunities might arise? Moreover, numerous cultivators had ulterior motives. They established markets here, setting up stalls for trade, while others sought to attract the attention of powerful factions. After all, many external forces had arrived this time. The Donghuang region was the weakest area within the Guangyuan celestial domain, even inferior to the immortal forces of other regions. If these lesser cultivators were noticed by external powers and managed to escape the encirclement of the Hongma Mahai, they might just leap through the Dragon Gate and soar to greatness. What was once a place shunned by many, the Valley of Death, grew increasingly lively. However, with a larger crowd came conflict. Powerful beings occasionally erupted into fierce battles, stirring up dust and chaos, a truly terrifying spectacle. As the indigenous power, the Nangong clan responded promptly to the unusual occurrences in the Valley of Death, swiftly occupying a favorable position at the forefront. Nangong Xiong remained behind to oversee the family. While they welcomed Nangong Hao to their encampment, several clan elders gathered around Nangong Hao, seated within the strategically advantageous central tent, their expressions grave. Your Highness, we have observed that not only beings from the peripheral 3 regions have arrived, but even representatives from the 7 great powers of Zhongzhou have come. It appears they are determined to claim the treasures of the Valley of Death. Indeed, our Nangong clan reigns supreme in the Donghuang region, yet we may not compare to these formidable entities. What shall we do if they seize the treasures of our region? We would be the laughingstock. Does your Highness have a plan to enter the Valley of Death? The elders voiced their concerns. Nangong Hao, however, remained composed and replied indifferently, "Fear not. Now that I have arrived, I shall not allow them to take the treasures of the Valley of Death." The elders exchanged glances, their faith in Nangong Hao unwavering. After all, he was merely 14 years old, yet had already reached the realm of a saint. Such a cultivation speed was indeed extraordinary. If a genius of this caliber could not obtain the treasures within the Valley of Death, who could? Yet, there were many other talented individuals from surrounding factions, and they were not to be underestimated, causing considerable anxiety. Dong! Dong! 2 resounding echoes reverberated from the Valley of Death. Another sound rang out. An elder exclaimed in shock. Nangong Hao furrowed his brow, for the sounds resembled that of an ancient clock. With each toll, even those not close to the valley felt their blood surge and their souls disarrayed. Weaker beings even coughed up blood, their realms plummeting. The sound contained a power of time. Countless beings recoiled in horror, hastily retreating once more. Aside from the formidable entities from the peripheral 4 regions and Zhongzhou, none dared to remain in the front. Yet Nangong Hao's ferocity intensified. His eyes sparkled as he began to comprehend the significance of the previous 2 tolls. In truth, only divine abilities or treasure techniques could fully harness the power of laws or orders. However, such techniques were exceedingly rare, and even the most skilled individuals might only master 4 or 5. To transform each law or order into a treasure technique was nearly impossible. Even one as formidable as Nangong Hao could not accomplish that. Yet now, having heard the resonant power from the Valley of Death, a sudden insight blossomed within him. He sought to evolve the temporal order into a divine ability technique. This would render it even more powerful and convenient. Nangong Hao closed his eyes, meticulously recalling the 2 tolls. The power of time could manifest as a clock. The tolls of the clock could be categorized into 2 types. The first was for timekeeping, tolling every hour, reminding people of the passage of time. The second was the death knell. When life fades, the bell tolls for the departed. Once the death knell sounds, even the living must yield to fate. Nangong Hao began to evolve the temporal order, golden light of comprehension enveloping him. This scene astonished the clan elders. They found it terrifying to merely resist the clock's toll from the Valley of Death. Yet their own divine son sought to grasp its deeper meaning. However, many prodigies were similarly confident, striving to comprehend the mysteries within the tolls, hoping to harness the power of time. Meanwhile, far from a Nangong clan, on a desolate stretch of barren land, a large stone lay quietly. This stone was the essence of a spiritual coin that had taken form. It too wished to enter the Valley of Death, but feared that Nangong Hao might seize its divine patterns, so it feigned being a mere rock, waiting for an opportune moment. Seeing the golden light of comprehension radiating from Nangong Hao's encampment, The stone was filled with resentment. I never expected this guy to have the protection of heavenly will. But once I managed to enter the valley of death and perfect my divine patterns, you shall surely meet your end. It turned out that the stone's divine patterns were not limited to a singular path of all things. Favored by the heavens, it could attain multiple paths. Of course, it could not do so as effortlessly as Nangong Hao, nor could it acquire hundreds of paths all at once. Most importantly, even if it could obtain them, what would that matter? Nangong Hao would be more than eager for the stone to gather more power from the paths, ultimately absorbing it all. Don't. Approximately half a month later, the third toll resonated. This time it rang 3 times, the power even stronger, causing many nobles to feel their vitality waning, their bones trembling with fear. Yet many prodigies continued to seek understanding, especially Nangong Hao, who had formed a vague shadow behind him. The shape of that shadow appeared strange, and although many beings watched, they could not discern its nature. Only Nangong Hao understood that it resembled a standing clock, taller than a person, marked with 12 signs of the hours, inscribed with celestial stems and earthly branches, and featuring 3 hands representing heaven, earth, and humanity. A long clock hammer swung gently, simulating a faint clock toll. It was still not fully comprehended. The tolls were insufficient. Nangong Hao even felt a certain distance from it, his voice booming like a dragon's roar. Take me into the valley of death. Those nearby gasped in astonishment. How ruthless. Too ruthless. The place they sought to avoid was precisely where Nangong Hao desired to venture. Yet he possessed the means. After all, he was protected by the golden light of comprehension, capable of resisting all external attacks. However, it remained uncertain whether he could withstand the power of time. The clan elders hesitated, but the command of their divine son could not be defied. They could only produce a forbidden artifact. The forbidden artifact, crafted from imperial tools, possessed a fragment of imperial power when unleashed. The artifact they retrieved was a small vessel made from a void warship, able to transport Nangong Hao into the valley of death. Nangong Hao floated and sat cross-legged upon the small vessel, gradually making his way toward the valley of death. Yet he was not alone in this endeavor. Many beings were attempting to approach as well. Although they lacked the temporal order, they possessed other means of resistance. Chapter 142. The Ambush of Puma Grass and the Mastery of Temporal Divine Powers. First, a resplendent lawn bird from the southernmost lands appeared. Its vibrant green feathers shimmered like a multitude of divine swords. This lawn bird fixed its gaze upon the valley of death, its eyes shining like twin suns, radiating a blinding light that deterred any who dared to look directly. It then spread its wings and soared toward the valley of death. The power of time from the valley could be felt from 10 miles away, influencing the strength of all beings. Even the azure lawn bird is subjected to fluctuations, its strength rapidly depleting, vitality waning, and its soul affected, leading to an unexpected aging process. With a resounding cry, the lawn bird emits a sound that resonates through the air, enveloped in endless azure flames, known as the Fire of Nirvana. According to legend, the lawn bird is a descendant of the phoenix, capable of resurrection through the flames of Nirvana. A powerful figure exclaims in astonishment. At this moment, other disturbances arise. A formidable shaman appears, adorned with yellow serpents dangling from its ears, towering in stature, muscles rippling, and clad in animal skins, walking barefoot with an air of ferocity. This is Kwa Fu, a young prodigy of the shaman clan, rumored to possess the ability to move mountains and fill seas, to chase the sun and pursue the moon. An informed individual gasps, revealing Kwa Fu's name. From the western realms, a monk also emerges, radiating an aura of solemn Buddhist light, draped in a brocade kasaya, holding a 9-metal Zen staff, approaching with utmost reverence. Yet, none can ascertain his identity, which is peculiar. Typically, prodigies, even those who seldom make appearances, are known to all. However, this monk seems to have materialized from thin air, leaving no clue to his identity. Some speculate that he might be a powerful being reincarnated from ancient times, akin to Nangong Wushuang, aiming to reincarnate and achieve the pinnacle once more. Under the leadership of these prodigies, many others are stirred to action. Even the Stone Man stealthily approaches the Valley of Death. Behind, top-tier powerhouses gaze upon the Valley of Death, filled with sentiment. Truly, it is an era of great contention. Not only has the ascending heavenly palace appeared, but even the Valley of Death is unwilling to remain silent, making its presence felt. Even more alarming is the fact that so many prodigies are able to venture inside together. entering the Valley of Death. Even at its periphery, the force of time intensifies 100-fold. This means that the flow of time here is 100 times that of the outside world. One day outside equates to 100 days here. Moreover, the erosion of power accelerates tenfold. Even taking a single step forward requires substantial vitality. The vessel that Nan Gong Hao is aboard, a forbidden craft, loses its efficacy about a mile into the Valley of Death. As he contemplates, Nan Gong Hao does not venture deeper, choosing a halt. However, the azure luan has already soared above his head. Kuo Fu casts a disdainful glance at Nan Gong Hao, striding forward with determination. Meanwhile, the monk lingers briefly beside Nan Gong Hao, remarking, "The Kitagarbha Bodhisattva? That power should not belong to you. If you wish to avoid the wrath of the Buddhist sect, you ought to return." Nan Gong Hao disregards him. As the shadow of the bell behind him grows increasingly vivid, its resounding chime becoming extraordinarily mystical. The monk shakes his head slightly and continues deeper into the valley. Other prodigies hasten to join, many casting glances at Nan Gong Hao, yet his golden aura of enlightenment prevents any from making a move. However, some beings exhibit ample patience. A dandelion takes root at Nan Gong Hao's feet, appearing to be an ordinary blade of grass. Yet, all who witness this scene narrow their eyes in recognition. They identify this dandelion as a monstrous entity from an ancient race, known as Pu Mo Chao. It is incredibly fearsome. The white fluff atop its head represents seeds that can penetrate the bodies of living beings, rooting themselves and siphoning their vitality, even their souls. It is said that during an ancient era of great contention, several quasi-emperors perished beneath the seeds of Pu Mo Chao, drained of their essence. At that time, Pu Mo Chao nearly ascended to the status of an emperor, only to be vanquished by an immortal's intervention. This serves to illustrate that even immortals regard Pu Mo Chao with trepidation. Such a terrifying species, taking root at Nan Gong Hao's feet, clearly harbors no intention of subservience, but rather seeks to devour him. After all, should Pu Mo Chao absorb Nan Gong Hao's soul, it would gain all his legacies, including the time-based powers he has just comprehended. Pu Mo Chao evidently intends to wait until Nan Gong Hao fully grasps his powers before swiftly taking advantage of the situation, akin to how Nan Gong Hao mercilessly slaughters those favored by destiny. Yet, Nan Gong Hao remains oblivious to all of this. He sits cross-legged within the golden light, quietly contemplating the force of time. A series of 4 chimes resonate. Within the Valley of Death, the prodigies endure even more terrifying impacts. Each of them radiates extraordinary power to shield themselves. However, the azure luan emits a heartbreaking cry, having exhausted all its strength, and is obliterated, its physical form annihilated. Yet, the flames of nirvana do not extinguish. Instead, they swell. Within the flames, a blue figure emerges. Indeed, it is the Luan bird once more. The phoenix undergoes nirvana. Growing ever stronger, the Luan bird, a descendant of the phoenix, has now undergone nirvana 3 times, enhancing its power and ascending to the rank of a 5-star saint. Kuo Fu has aged considerably, no longer resembling a youthful prodigy, but rather a dying man. However, as he approaches the brink of collapse, he places his hands on the ground and draws in a deep breath. The shaman clan can absorb the essence of all things for their own use. Although not as formidable as the stone man's universal path, it remains invincible. At this moment, Kuo Fu absorbs the earth's power to replenish himself, rejuvenating his spirit. And he laughs maniacally. It turns out this earth has long been tainted by the pathway of time, and now it possesses a trace of time's power. Having absorbed the earth's essence, Kuo Fu now wields some time power, making it easier to resist the Valley of Death. Upon hearing this, the other prodigies immediately emulate him. Some draw time power from stones, others from trees, and still others extract it from the surrounding spiritual energy. These prodigies hail from top-tier factions, each showcasing their abilities. Pu Mo Chao is not idle either. From the very beginning of its rooting in the earth, it sensed the time power within and has been continuously absorbing it. With the acquisition of time power, it grows increasingly confident in its ability to siphon Nan Gong Hao's strength. For 2 full months, these prodigies have been on the move. The Valley of Death consists of 3 stages. Upon initial entry, the flow of time is 100 times faster. In the middle region of the Valley of Death, the flow accelerates to 1,000-fold. In the later stages, it reaches 10,000 times the flow, as if there exists an interminable temporal passage. The azure luan has undergone nirvana, 3 times, yet finds itself unable to approach. Furthermore, it has fallen from the front ranks to second place. The lead has been taken by the monk, who has not paused for a moment, steadily advancing toward the Bodhi tree. His perseverance and strength are utterly terrifying. On this day, as the 8th bell tolls in the Valley of Death, the golden light of enlightenment surrounding Nan Gong Hao suddenly vanishes. A crisp chime resonates from behind him. The bell that has materialized behind Nan Gong Hao is now fully manifested, displaying 12 hours and 3 hands, all pointing to the 1 o'clock position. The unity of heaven, earth, and humanity erupts in bell tolls, generating a reverse force of time that crashes into the Valley of Death. Upon witnessing this scene, Pu Mo Chao sways its body, releasing fluffy white seeds that drift through the air. Some land on Nan Gong Hao's exposed skin, quickly rooting themselves and burrowing into his flesh. Others attempt to invade his mouth, nose, and even his eyes and ears. Chapter 143, Devouring Pu Mo Chao, Consuming Divine Powers to Evolve. Just as Nan Gong Hao completes his comprehension of the time powers and the golden light of enlightenment fades, he remains vigilant against other potential ambushes. However, he did not anticipate the presence of such a bizarre entity as Pu Mo Chao. At this moment, the white fluff has taken root at numerous points on his body. They are desperately digging into his flesh, even spreading through his veins, seeking to penetrate his heart. Should these white fluffs succeed, Nan Gong Hao would undoubtedly face death. Instantly, he seals his eyes, ears, mouth, and nose. Then, he channels his spiritual power within his body, attempting to expel Pu Mo Chao. However, he is taken aback to discover that the seeds of Pu Mo Chao are capable of devouring his spiritual attacks. Within Nan Gong Hao's body, it feels as though multiple bottomless pits have opened, consuming all of his strength. The entity, known as Pu Mo Chao, had cautiously retreated to a distance. This creature, possessing formidable and insidious powers, was indeed a terrifying adversary. Nan Gong Hao's gaze was frigid as the 3 hands of the grandfather clock behind him suddenly began to move. These hands represented heaven, earth, and humanity, the hour hand denoting heaven, the minute hand signifying earth, and the second hand embodying humanity. At that moment, the second hand reversed direction, retreating from the 1 o'clock position back to 12. Encircled by the forces of time, Nan Gong Hao felt the white fibers of Pu Mo Chao rooted within him, being compelled to withdraw their tendrils by an extraordinary force. Retreat. His expression remained impassive as the second hand regressed once more, reaching 11 o'clock. The once embedded fibers shrank in power and ascended into the air. Nan Gong Hao had audaciously utilized the power of time reversal to revert these seeds of Pu Mo Chao to their state before they had settled upon him. Observing this from afar, Pu Mo Chao trembled in alarm. This time, however, it was not sowing seeds, but rather quaking in fear of Nan Gong Hao's might. Without hesitation, Pu Mo Chao burrowed underground, swiftly fleeing from the scene. Attempting to escape, Nan Gong Hao sneered, unleashing the true dragon flame to incinerate the white fibers before him. Subsequently, the second hand of the clock behind him commenced its forward march. The second hand returned to the 1 o'clock position, the very genesis of all things. With a resounding chime, the clock echoed with the relentless power of time. Nan Gong Hao was harnessing the divine art of time to revert everything to its origin. Although Pu Mo Chao had instantaneously fled 10 miles away, it was forcibly pulled back, striving to return to its original position. Damn it! Pu Mo Chao shrieked, though its mouth was untraceable. Yet, Pu Mo Chao was not devoid of time power. It resisted with all its might and managed to advance. It understood that Nan Gong Hao's time powers ultimately had a limited range. As long as it could escape this influence, it would be free. However, Nan Gong Hao merely scoffed. Turn again. The second hand continued to advance, reaching 2 o'clock. With 2 resounding chimes, Pu Mo Chao was perplexed. If Nan Gong Hao sought to return it, should he not reverse time? Why then did the hands move forward? In the next moment, the surging power of time rapidly drained Pu Mo Chao's strength. This was the death toll. Nan Gong Hao had tolled the death knell for Pu Mo Chao. Each chime urged it closer to demise. Flee! 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 Pu Mo Chao was driven to madness, never anticipating Nan Gong Hao's overwhelming strength. Yet, the more it desperately exerted its power, the more it was consumed by the forces of time, drawing nearer to death. 3 o'clock. Nan Gong Hao frowned. This time manipulation was still too feeble. Twice it had failed to obliterate Pu Mo Chao. Heaven knows how disheartened other beings would be should they learn of this. After all, this was Pu Mo Chao, an ancient aberration. Its ancestors had once vanquished numerous quasi-emperors, ultimately being exterminated by celestial beings. Such a bloodline descendant. And yet only 2 chimes of the clock were needed to bring about its annihilation. Would anyone else dare to live? 3 resonant chimes rang out. Finally, Pu Mo Chao's defenses were shattered by this overwhelming force of time. Although it had absorbed some of the power of time, it had not refined it, merely utilized it temporarily. At this moment, that scant power was expended, leaving Pu Mo Chao gravely wounded, its body already fractured. I will fight you. Pu Mo Chao had always been the ambusher. Yet now it had attempted to surprise Nangong Hao, only to be vanquished. How could it remain composed? Shaking its form, it expelled a luminous seed. This seed was entirely different from the one that had once rooted itself in Nangong Hao. It bore a profound rhythm intertwined with it, accompanied by a haunting melody, reminiscent of an ancient giant awakening. Though distant, Nangong Hao could still sense the terrifying power emanating from that seed. This was the seed of the ancient Pu Mo Chao, the seed of the once indomitable entity. Observers nearby were left aghast, waiting to seize the opportunity. However, upon witnessing this scene, they immediately fled in terror, not daring to look back. After all, should this seed land upon anyone, it would instantaneously drain them of life, leaving not a single strand behind. This was a seed of the great Tao, which I had intended to use when ascending to the Sage King. I never anticipated it being forced out by you. If so, then perish and pay the price. I refuse to believe that this seed, capable of absorbing even quasi-emperors, cannot consume you. Pu Monta Cao roared in fury, anticipating Nangong Hao's annihilation. Yet, Nangong Hao laughed heartily. This is precisely what I awaited. In truth, he had suspected Pu Mo Chao's origins while contending with it earlier. He had long believed that this entity was indeed connected to the ancient Pu Mo Chao. As expected, it now summoned the seed of the ancient Pu Mo Chao, a seed imbued with the essence of the great Tao. Nangong Hao summoned the chaotic blue lotus, enveloping the realm in a blue radiance that directly devoured the ferocious seed. Soon after, the chaotic blue lotus entered Nangong Hao's body, digesting that seed. Those observing were left dumbfounded. Was that all? Such a terrifying seed, one in which Pu Mo Chao had placed great hope, was absorbed so effortlessly? Pu Mo Chao was equally astonished, staring at Nangong Hao in disbelief. What are you doing? Nangong Hao replied nonchalantly, to eliminate you. With a roar, 2 colossal dragons of great might erupted from Nangong Hao's eyes, thundering toward Pu Mo Chao. Pu Mo Chao, still reeling from its injuries and having forced out the seed, was in a state of extreme vulnerability. At that moment, the 2 immense dragons struck Pu Mo Chao with overwhelming force. In an instant, Pu Monta Cao was vanquished. Nangong Hao unleashed his devouring order, absorbing all of Pu Mo Chao's power and beginning the process of evolution. The devouring order lacked divine techniques or treasures. In essence, Pu Mo Chao epitomized the act of consumption. Nangong Hao intended to evolve the devouring order into the likeness of Pu Mo Chao. This endeavor proved significantly easier now, as all aspects of Pu Mo Chao had melded into Nangong Hao's form, including its training process. Furthermore, the chaotic blue lotus was refining that great Tao seed. Within a few short days, a Pu Mo Chao began to float behind Nangong Hao, effortlessly releasing countless white fibers that consumed everything in their wake. A smile graced Nangong Hao's face as he strode forward, eager to seize the treasure. In the Valley of Death, the 10th chime had already resounded. Without a doubt, after the 12th chime, everything within would be laid bare. The seasoned powerhouses, fearing the unknown within and aware of their dwindling lifespans, refrained from entering. However, should the mist dissipate, revealing the location of the treasures, those formidable beings would undoubtedly rush in masse. At that juncture, with a strong gathering, the Nangong family would hold no advantage, necessitating a preemptive strike. As for preventing other forces from snatching the treasures after acquisition, that was a concern for another time. Chapter 144. Entering the core region, a great catastrophe approaches. Nangong Hao had meditated upon the divine art of time for several months. Notably, these months were calculated from the outside world, while within the valley, time flowed at a rate of hundreds or even thousands of times faster. Of course, these young prodigies possessed ample lifespan and were not overly concerned. Yet, the power of time consumed not only life force but also other forms of energy. The deeper one ventured into the gorge, the scarcer the spiritual energy and resources became, rendering it impossible to replenish strength. Even the Kwafu of the Witch Clan sensed the arduousness of the endeavor. Though Nan Gonghao was the last to act and furthest from the core region, he advanced with the grandfather clock floating behind him. The outer and mid-sections of the gorge posed no hindrance to him. Upon reaching the region of the Valley of Death, where time flowed at a 10,000-fold rate, Nan Gonghao began to feel pressure. Yet he pressed onward. The other prodigies had already entered, and he was unwilling to concede defeat. Moreover, he had just traversed the periphery and the intermediate distance, but he was unable to sign in. Clearly, the system required Nan Gonghao to sign in at the Death Valley, which should be within the most central region. It was even possible that it was beneath that distant Bodhi tree. A grave expression adorned Nan Gonghao's face as he stepped across the invisible boundary. He entered an area where the flow of time was 1,000 times faster. A gust of wind brushed against him, gentle yet terrifying. With the arrival of the wind, the vital energy and strength within Nan Gonghao swiftly dissipated. Moreover, he found that he was unable to replenish it. The surrounding temporal power was excessively dense, repelling all forms of strength, rendering him incapable of restoring his vitality and spiritual energy. In other circumstances, the inability to recover one's vitality and spiritual energy might be tolerable. However, in such a place where the flow of time was so frantically accelerated, the loss of power would lead to the rapid deterioration of one's lifespan. After all, vitality and spiritual energy are the primary conditions for sustaining life. Without these two elements, the prodigies present would not survive even a quarter of an hour within the Death Valley. Nan Gonghao furrowed his brow as the second hand of the clock behind him began to reverse. Yet this time, it did not move swiftly. Instead, it emitted a steady ticking sound, retreating incrementally. The second hand symbolized humanity. Its power enveloped Nan Gonghao, reclaiming all the vitality he had just lost. This was the power of time reversal, capable of maintaining Nan Gonghao at his peak. Of course, it required the consumption of his essence. However, his essence was exceedingly robust, so there was no immediate cause for concern. With a crack, the minute hand of the clock began to move forward, leaping ahead by 1 tick. This minute hand represented the Earth. At that moment, Nan Gonghao vanished from his original position and advanced 10 miles in an instant. It turned out that the power of this minute hand was to compress distance, significantly shortening the time required for travel. This was also due to the fact that in the Death Valley, Nan Gonghao dared not hasten his journey. Otherwise, with just a small advancement of the minute hand, he could appear 1,000 miles away. This unprecedented speed of travel surpassed even the speed of light. Several prodigies who had entered this section of the Death Valley with 1,000-fold time flow half a month prior had only progressed a mere 200 meters. Upon witnessing Nan Gonghao's instantaneous leap of 10 miles, they were instantly filled with envy, jealousy, and hatred, their eyes turning red. Comparisons among individuals can be deadly. Comparing goods can lead to discarding. The heavens were too unfair, bestowing all the good fortune upon Nan Gonghao. Could they not consider them even slightly? With another crack, the minute hand advanced yet again, propelling him another 10 miles. This time, Nan Gonghao surpassed a prodigy from a top-tier force in Zhongzhou. The top-tier forces of Zhongzhou were equivalent in strength to the Undying of the Eastern Wasteland. This was still owing to the merits of the imperial artifacts wielded by the Undying forces of the Eastern Wasteland. Without imperial artifacts, even a grand clan like the Nan Gong family entering Zhongzhou would merely be considered a third-rate force. The Zhongzhou prodigy, witnessing Nan Gonghao surpass him, was instantly enraged and shouted vehemently, "You little brat from the Eastern Wasteland, how dare you surpass me? Aren't you afraid of courting disaster?" Nan Gonghao's pace did not falter as he continued forward, seemingly unperturbed by the taunts. The Zhongzhou prodigy, his eyes flashing with anger, bellowed, "Damn pest. You are merely trash from a remote mountain village. How dare you disregard me? Let me tell you, I'm a descendant of the Hua family in Zhongzhou. Come here and carry me into the core area to obtain treasures, and I can ensure the survival of your Nan Gong family during the impending calamity." Nan Gonghao halted his steps and sighed. "I had intended to play the fool and ignore you all, focusing solely on acquiring treasures. Why must you provoke me?" He was aware that the Eastern Wasteland was about to face a terrifying catastrophe. Previously, the Tianyin Tong had merged with the Great Might Heavenly Dragon and the Order of Causality, reaching a consummate realm. With the Tianyin Tong, Nan Gonghao glimpsed a fragment of the future. Just now, having perfected the Time Divine ability, he utilized the Tianyin Tong to foresee even more of the future. In that future, The eastern wasteland was engulfed in flames of war, with countless lives suffering. Nan Gonghao understood that once the events in the Death Valley concluded, chaos would surely ensue in the eastern wasteland. He felt pity for the innocent people of the eastern wasteland and wished to reduce the number of enemies they faced. Hence, he had chosen to disregard the provocations of the Zhongzhou Hua family's prodigy. However, despite Nan Gonghao's ability to endure, the proud bloodline within him could not. Moreover, even if he chose to remain patient, would these Zhongzhou individuals show mercy to the eastern wasteland? Absolutely not. These individuals were so arrogant that they had likely already regarded the eastern wasteland as a mere hunting ground to trample upon at will. After all, why would the Zhongzhou prodigy dare to provoke him when it was clear that Nan Gonghao had demonstrated superiority? What are you staring at, you dog? Do you wish to bite me? The Zhongzhou Hua family prodigy scolded in anger. Although the time divine ability could reverse his vitality, it ultimately required replenishment, as did he. Behind Nan Gonghao, another phantom appeared. It was the Pu Mo Chao he had condensed using the devouring divine ability. As the Pu Mo Chao gently swayed, several white filaments flew forth and enveloped the Zhongzhou prodigy. The prodigy, clearly aware of the terror of this entity, screamed in horror. No. Stay away. Unfortunately, he was utterly powerless to stop it. The Zhongzhou prodigy attempted to unleash his strength in resistance, but his power was already strained against the temporal force, let alone against Nan Gonghao. The white filament seeds of the Pu Mo Chao descended upon the Zhongzhou prodigy, swiftly absorbing his fleshly strength. And even his order power and soul force were not spared. No, you cannot kill me. I'm a prodigy of Zhongzhou. I'm a descendant of the Hua family. My father is the supreme sage king. The Zhongzhou prodigy shrieked in despair as he was drained, all his energy merging into the seeds of the Pu Mo Chao. Nan Gonghao waved his hand, retrieving the seeds, which brought back an abundance of power. He collected the fleshly energy and soul, while the order power was given to the chaos Qinglian. The surrounding prodigies, witnessing this scene, could not help but feel their scalps go numb. Terrifying. A sage-level prodigy was thus drained. Wasn't this the eastern wasteland? Wasn't it a desolate mountain valley? How could there be such an extraordinary prodigy? Could it be that this impending calamity would be averted as a result? No, it would not. This time, the forces from Zhongzhou and several other domains had come to take advantage of the eastern wasteland's demise, so no changes could possibly occur. Chapter 145, Kwa Fu chasing the sun, surrounded by three fierce beasts. Nan Gonghao continued his advance, surpassing one prodigy after another. Among these prodigies were those from the eastern wasteland as well as from external domains. Some regarded him with envy, some with cold, calculating gazes, and others with a hint of scorn, as though they were looking at the dead. Unfazed by these individuals, Nan Gonghao caught up with Kwa Fu of the Witch Clan. Kwa Fu was plodding along, his vitality surging like the sea, radiating a blinding red light that made it hard to gaze directly at him. Not wishing to engage, he nevertheless heard Kwa Fu say, "Your strength is commendable. We should collaborate." Not interested, Nan Gonghao coldly retorted, "Collaborating to acquire treasures. I represent the Witch Clan to protect your family." The earlier fool was merely a member of a first-rate force and should not be taken seriously. The Witch Clan is a formidable race. Even the strongest of Zhongzhou would not dare to provoke us lightly. Kwa Fu expressed some dissatisfaction, but still sought to win over Nan Gonghao. Ignoring him, Nan Gonghao was solely focused on obtaining treasures. Damn it, do you believe the outside world has surely descended into chaos by now? Kwa Fu shouted angrily. Nan Gonghao anticipated this. After all, the beings from external domains had come here to seize opportunities. They could not afford to wait too long. Thus, during his exploration of the Death Valley, a war should have already erupted outside. However, no matter how fierce the battle was, it would not affect the Death Valley. Nan Gonghao calmed his mind and continued onward. He soon caught up with a Qing Wan, who was in second place, surrounded by terrifying azure nirvana flames. At this moment, it beheld Nan Gonghao and unexpectedly lunged towards him, exclaiming, "Human race, to offer your soul and flesh to me is the greatest honor." Nan Gonghao unleashed the Pu Ma Sao to counter this assault. Numerous white tufts floated through the air, heading for the Qing Wan. With a cold smirk, Qing Wan's flames surged violently, obliterating the white tufts of Pu Ma Sao. These tufts symbolize the order of devouring, typically impervious to fire. The flames emanating from Qing Wan were terrifying, incinerating even the essence of devouring order, causing the tufts to vanish completely. This served as a testament to the sheer dreadfulness of Qing Luan. However, Nangong Hao remained unperturbed as the minute hand of the falling clock behind him began to rotate. In a swift motion, he appeared on the back of Qing Luan. Seeking death, Qing Luan roared in fury. As a descendant of the phoenix, blessed with the bloodline of divine beasts, it had known nothing but reverence and fear from all since its birth. No one dared to trample upon it, let alone strike it. Yet now, Nangong Hao had committed such a humiliating act, inciting Qing Luan to fervently unleash its flames. The nirvana fire rapidly enveloped Qing Luan. Holding the Dizongbin Yuan Dao, Nangong Hao struck fiercely at Qing Luan. This was a quasi-imperial weapon of Dizong, rumored to harbor the power of the reincarnation path. The force of reincarnation far exceeded that of nirvana, as the blade cleaved through the flames and struck Qing Luan with tremendous force. Qing Luan let out a wretched scream, blood gushing forth. Nangong Hao reached through the breach in the nirvana fire, brazenly activating the devouring order. Before long, an entire Puma Cao had taken root on Qing Luan's back, continuously siphoning its strength. You dare to strike at me? Are you not afraid of the wrath of the Phoenix clan? Qing Luan was taken aback by Nangong Hao's formidable prowess, terrified at the prospect of defeat after merely exchanging a few blows. This fellow truly embodied the essence of an invincible supreme being. In fact, Qing Luan felt an unsettling notion that even its kin, the ancient fierce birds like Bifong, might not stand a chance against him. Nangong Hao incessantly absorbed Qing Luan's power, even seeking to claim its order power. Oh, there are actually fragments of the Nirvana path? He mused, though lamenting their incompleteness. It seemed a journey to the extreme south was in order. His words sent shivers down the spines of those present, particularly the young prodigies, who displayed expressions of sheer horror. Had this man lost his mind, daring to venture into the extreme south? Although the extreme south, like the Eastern Wasteland, was also an edge territory, the difference between the two was monumental. The Eastern Wasteland was hindered by the Hongmeng Demon Sea, forever relegated to a corner, with scarce information and poor cultivation resources, akin to a small valley. Meanwhile, the extreme south was guarded by divine beasts, with legends of ancient celestial inheritances. Even the strongest from Zhongzhou would tread carefully when mentioned. How could Nangong Hao dare to claim he would stir trouble in the extreme south? As Qing Luan was being drained of its essence and coughing up blood, it erupted into maniacal laughter. You fool. Your aspirations are utterly delusional. The extreme south is a realm of immortals, a domain beyond your reach. No, you shall not pass. My clan has sent envoys to seize your imperial weapon and nurture our phoenix offspring. Once the phoenix hatchling emerges, it will undoubtedly be an overwhelming young supreme being, destined to become a great emperor, a celestial king. Nangong Hao frowned, realizing there was indeed a phoenix hatchling. No wonder the extreme south was so audacious. Just then, Kuo-fu arrived, solemnly declaring, Qing Luan, let us collaborate to eliminate this boy. You seek treasures, and I desire his divine abilities. Agreed. Qing Luan gritted its teeth in agreement. In truth, it held disdain for the witch clan. The demon race and the witch race were naturally opposed. Yet, Nangong Hao was far too ferocious to ignore. With a roar, Kuo-fu thrust both palms forward, unleashing two blazing suns that surged towards Nangong Hao. They resembled true suns, radiating fiery heat capable of incinerating all. Even from a distance, Nangong Hao felt the searing flames scorching his skin, his face reflecting astonishment. From within those two suns, he discerned the ascension of flying creatures. It was the Jin Wu. Legend had it that the Jin Wu was a holy spirit birthed from the true fire of the sun. The tale of Kuo-fu chasing the sun was, in truth, the hunting of the Jin Wu, imprisoning it within himself, refining it into 10 great suns, a terrifying divine ability. If unleashed, it could obliterate all life. As the two suns, now infused with Jin Wu, approached, Nangong Hao seemed to hear their fierce cries, filled with ferocity. Come forth, he commanded, as the celestial star chart had already fused with his inner world. Yet he could still summon the celestial stars and harness their power. At that moment, he illuminated a staggering number of stars, over 100,000, and transformed them into the great might heavenly dragon, merging it with his heavenly eye. However, this time, Nangong Hao aimed to ignite the solar star. This ancient star, filled with divine fire and boundless power, had eluded him in previous attempts due to insufficient energy. Was this Jin Wu not the perfect source of energy? Clad in the power of celestial stars, Nangong Hao bellowed, "Devour!" The Puma Tsao took root within the celestial stars, seemingly growing into a colossal tree, releasing a terrifying, devouring divine light alongside the power of the celestial stars. The divine light enveloped the great sun Jinwu, genuinely beginning to consume its strength. The mighty suns shrank visibly. Kuafu's expression shifted dramatically. What? It dares to absorb my Jinwu's power? Qingluan, realizing Kuafu's actions mirrored its own, found itself similarly suppressed. Kuafu, do not hold back. Unleash your lethal moves. Qingluan commanded, its feathers trembling, exuding an aura of death. It intended to deploy a divine ability of its own, capable of severing stars and annihilating the earth. However, at that moment, the Lilong roared from afar, surrender the great might heavenly dragon divine ability. This figure had been lurking nearby, feigning weakness. Now, witnessing Nangong Hao being besieged, it suddenly revealed itself to strike. Qingluan and Kuafu rejoiced. The Lilong, an ancient royal lineage, shimmered with golden light, covered in dense dragon scales, possessing formidable power. Riding on a cloud, it unleashed a divine ability. Even a five-star sage would find it a daunting challenge. From the perspective of the trio, Nangong Hao's Time Order was tasked with countering the Valley of Death, while the Devouring Order contended with Qingluan and Kuafu. He surely lacked the surplus power to confront the Lilong. Chapter 146. A fierce battle. The chaotic Qinglian separates from the body, the Lilong unleashed a divine light attack. Yet, Nangong Hao, unperturbed, remained seated on Qingluan's back, coldly retorting, "You desire the great might heavenly dragon? Here you go." With a hum, his eyes erupted with terrifying golden light, piercing through the void. Accompanied by a dragon's roar, two great might heavenly dragons surged forth. They contained the power of over 100,000 stars, enough to annihilate worlds. They charged towards the Lilong, effortlessly shattering the divine light it expelled. The Lilong, however, remained unafraid, swaying its dragon body, its scales clattering as it unleashed another divine ability. The Ascension to Dragonhood Technique. The Lilong was not a true-blooded dragon, as pure-blooded dragons had long been extinct. Nevertheless, those with exceptional talent could refine their bloodline using the world's power, forcibly enhancing their bloodline purity for a fleeting moment, thus embodying the might of ancient pure-blooded dragons. The Lilong, having forcibly augmented its bloodline, at that moment seemed to transform into a true dragon, exuding boundless majesty. It opened its massive jaws, preparing to devour the two great might heavenly dragons to refine and comprehend their power. If it successfully refined these two great might heavenly dragons, the Lilong would have the opportunity to genuinely purify its bloodline, permanently enhancing its blood purity, potentially even restoring the pure bloodline of the ancient true dragon. The Lilong was overwhelmed with excitement, its scales shimmering with an exhilarating light, quivering incessantly. Yet, just as it sought to refine them, its expression suddenly changed. Wait. This isn't pure dragon blood power. There are other orders involved. The Lilong could refine the powers of ancient true dragons with its bloodline, but could not assimilate other orders. Moreover, that order was the order of causality. The Lilong erupted into a terrified roar. Qingluan and Kuafu were equally dumbfounded. What on earth was happening? This individual not only possesses the two supreme orders of temporal and devouring nature, but astonishingly also wields the order of causality. How can such three supreme orders reside within a single being? I refuse to accept this. Please, unleash the forbidden artifacts. Lilong roared. He is a member of the ancient royal lineage among the Yishou, endowed with an imperial artifact that surpasses even the combined might of the four imperial artifacts of the Eastern Wilderness region. Naturally, the forbidden artifacts crafted from such formidable imperial artifacts are incomparable to mere void warships. Lilong, filled with pride, had previously refrained from utilizing the forbidden artifacts, preferring to rely solely on his own strength to acquire treasures. However, at this moment, he cast aside his pride, intent only on annihilating the formidable adversary, Nangong Hao. Stop dawdling. Lilong's eyes burned crimson, filled with rage and fear. Such a powerful foe will undoubtedly seize the treasures of the Valley of Death. And once he emerges, doom will befall us all. Qingluan and Kuafu trembled violently, their faces reflecting terror. Indeed, Nangong Hao is too powerful, too terrifying. If he were not eliminated, the three of them would meet their demise. Even the forces who had come to the Eastern Wilderness seeking advantage would face misfortune. With their eyes reddened, Qing Luan and Hua Fu violently drew forth their own forbidden artifacts. Li Long's forbidden artifact was a dragon scale, sharp and unparalleled, transforming into a small sword that shot towards Nangong Hao. It bore the essence of Li Long's imperial artifact, S grand power. Qing Luan's forbidden artifact was a feather, ablaze with the flames of the phoenix. That was true nirvana fire. It could grant oneself rebirth, while incinerating the enemy's very essence. Hua Fu's was the most fearsome, a single drop of blood. Legend has it that the Wuzhu, possessed 12 ancestral shamans, each comparable to an emperor. A single drop of blood could transform into an invincible supreme entity, crushing all in its path. At this moment, the three forbidden artifacts surged towards Nangong Hao, their immense power tearing through the primordial mist that shrouded the Valley of Death. In that instant, those outside beheld the interior, and those inside glimpsed the exterior. Outside the Valley of Death, rivers of blood flowed. The outsiders were mercilessly slaughtering the indigenous cultivators of the eastern wilderness, with many formidable members of the Nangong family being primary targets of the onslaught. They fought while fleeing, drenched in blood, yet escape eluded them. For the eastern wilderness was engulfed in war, a realm rife with a release of terrifying powers. Li Long laughed maniacally. Nangong Hao, do you see? The outside has already taken action. Your Nangong family strong have suffered grievous losses, and your clan has undoubtedly been struck. Submit and become a servant of the Phoenix's young offspring, and we may protect you. Qing Luan attempted to subdue Nangong Hao. Hua Fu also chattered incessantly. Our clan as prodigy, Ho Yi, is about to emerge. You may follow him in your cultivation. Submit immediately or face death. Nangong Hao witnessed the dire plight of his family members, a fierce and terrifying killing intent flickering in his eyes. Subsequently, a radiant glow of the chaos blue lotus erupted from him. This light contained tremendous dread, as if it had traversed the eons since the dawn of creation, capable of suppressing all. With a hum, the chaos blue lotus unfurled, revealing its seed pod, erupting with a violent suction that devoured the three forbidden artifacts descending from above. Upon witnessing this scene, Li Long and the others were left aghast. What manner of entity is this? It can even consume forbidden artifacts? Moreover, as they gazed upon that azure lotus, they felt an innate tremor within. It was as though they faced a transcendent divine object that might surpass even imperial artifacts. All the prodigies who beheld the blue lotus could not help but entertain this thought. Nangong Hao, having consumed the forbidden artifacts with the chaos blue lotus, breathed gently, causing the lotus to drift from the Valley of Death, soaring towards the fleeing members of the Nangong family. You are utterly audacious, attempting to shield your kin from afar. Li Long's complexion turned ashen, his fury escalating. The three formidable adversaries were present, yet Nangong Hao still thought to protect his distant family. Nangong Hao stomped down, draining Qing Luan of life. He then obliterated Hua Fu with the power of time and extinguished Li Long using the order of causality. He consumed their flesh, energy, and order entirely. Having vanquished the three fiends, Nangong Hao turned and continued towards the core. At that moment, the monk was nearing the Bodhi tree. Outside the Valley of Death, chaos reigned. All indigenous inhabitants of the eastern wilderness were fleeing for their lives. The Nangong family had brought over 30 members, including 7 saints, with the rest being elites. Yet now, only about 10 remained, drenched in blood and even mutilated. Do not flee. Divulge your clan's secrets, and you may yet live. A powerful being enveloped in radiant crimson light appeared, blocking the path of the Nangong family. The leading saint of the Nangong family, Nangong Wu, bore a countenance of rage and grief. It is the Yin clan. You previously sent your young prodigies to visit my clan, and we treated them with hospitality. Indeed, thus I can spare your lives, can I not? The Yin clan's expert spoke indifferently. Nangong Wu, filled with fury, commanded, "Everyone, charge with me, and slay these foreign beasts." The arrogance of the Nangong family was ingrained in their very bones, which had birthed the likes of Nangong Yi, the god king of the abyss, and Nangong Hao, the unparalleled madman. At this moment, facing the Yin clan, Nangong Wu's companions were undaunted, intent only on attacking. But suddenly, 2 bloodied figures soared in from afar, gravely injured and near death. They were saints of the Western Sea clan. "Flee quickly, the Qing Lion clan is coming. Our kin have been devoured," cried the Western Sea saints, filled with anger towards Nangong Wu. Although they resented the Nangong family for consuming their clan, they were ultimately both indigenous to the eastern wilderness. Internal disputes should be resolved internally. If external forces were to consume them, it would be a disgrace to the eastern wilderness. Where can we run? The Qing Lion clan is already pursuing us, encircling the Nangong family from both the front and rear. With a thunderous roar, the Lei Jiao Xinyo clan reappeared, blocking the left path of the Nangong family. How audacious! The son of the Nangong family is truly arrogant. Yet alas, their clan is on the brink of annihilation. A flock of ferocious birds soared in from the distance, obstructing the right route of the Nangong family. Seeing this, Nangong Wu's face turned pale. There is no escape. Chapter 147. Approaching the core, the monk arrives. Observing the terrifying Yishou surrounding them, despair engulfed the faces of the remaining members of the Nangong family. They truly could not withstand this. All these adversaries were at least 2-star saints, whereas Nangong Wu's side had only 3 saints, the rest being royal or noble descendants. These were their direct bloodlines, the gifted offspring of the Nangong family, destined to revive and protect the clan. If they all perished here, even if the Nangong family survived, they would be left severely weakened. Our clan's divine son has yet to emerge from the Valley of Death. Do you not fear that he will acquire the supreme treasure and eventually annihilate you all? A noble descendant of the Nangong family cried out in desperation. Nangong, how is there hope? Silence. A Lei Jiao Xinyo bellowed, summoning divine thunder to strike that noble descendant. The young noble was engulfed in terror, unable to evade or resist. The disparity in realms was too vast. Nangong Wu was too far away, unable to provide aid, his eyes turning red with urgency. That was his beloved grandson, merely 10 years old. A 10-year-old noble with an unlimited future was about to be obliterated. Boom! The thunder struck, yet the noble descendant remained unscathed. A saint from the Western Sea clan had sacrificed himself to shield him, blood spurting forth as he collapsed to the ground. Barely clinging to life, filled with unwillingness, he roared, "Divine Son, avenge us!" In that moment, the Western Sea clan and the Nangong family resolved to put aside their grievances, united against the formidable foe. What does cooperation matter if we are all doomed? The earlier Lei Jiao Xinyo scoffed, then unleashed dozens of bolts of lightning. Let us strike together. The Yin clan discerned that they could no longer extract secrets, igniting a conflagration of flames. The ferocious bird screeched, unleashing sonic waves capable of rending the heavens. As for the Qing Lion clan, known for their ravenous consumption, they opened their gaping maws, intent on devouring a Nangong family saint. Is heaven intent on destroying our eastern wilderness? I shall not accept this. The Nangong family shall never perish. Nangong Wu's eyes bulged with fury, a heart-wrenching roar escaping his lips. He actually intended to self-destruct, carving a path of blood for his disciples. Just as the torrent of attacks was about to descend, a sudden cascade of azure light illuminated the sky, immobilizing and subsequently absorbing all those assaults. The assembled powerful beings stood in stunned silence. Even Nangong Wu halted his self-detonation, bewildered. In the next moment, the 10-year-old royal disciple wept. It is the Divine Sun. This is the chaotic azure lotus of the Divine Sun, which I have seen before. The Divine Sun is protecting us. We are saved. The Divine Sun is immensely powerful. The remaining disciples of the Nangong family were overtaken by wild joy, a miraculous resurgence from the brink of despair. However, the other ferocious beasts were consumed by fury, particularly the Qingshi clan, who bellowed, "What nonsense is this Divine Sun? Witness me devour this divine ability and consume you." They opened their mouths wide, attempting to engulf the chaotic azure lotus. Little did they expect that the chaotic azure lotus would instead bloom, unleashing an even more terrifying suction that devoured the gaping maw of the Qingshi saint, leaving not a trace. What? Lei Jiao, she recoiled in terror, retreating hastily. Yet, he could not escape in time, for that azure light instantly descended, enveloping all the alien races present. In the next moment, an unparalleled, terrifying force erupted. Those who were once hunters transformed into the hunted. No, such a dreadful power. The Divine Sun is fearsome. Why is there such a terrifying presence in the eastern wilderness? Has he emerged? No, he is slaying us from the Death Valley. The Nangong family faces great peril. Quickly inform the family as strong ones to be cautious. A horde of ferocious beasts howled in despair, yet they could not escape the fate of being consumed. The members of the Nangong family erupted in cheers. However, Nangong Wu understood it was futile. Indeed, it was futile. In the distance, the mist of the Hongmeng demon sea rapidly spread outward. incessantly engulfing the clear skies and boundless lands of the eastern wilderness. From within the demon sea came the roars of ferocious beasts. The invincible Kuanping clan was present. There were the purple gold royal bears that could tear the earth asunder. There were the Mou ravens, scorching souls with black flames. Various races came charging forth, driven by fear. They were terrified of the might of Nangong Hao, the young master, racing toward the Ascension Hall, the heir to the throne, and an exceedingly terrifying father. Once Nangong Yi returns, this father-son duo will ensure that the Hongmeng Demon Sea will never have the opportunity to invade the eastern wilderness. We must act preemptively. The endless eastern wilderness was engulfed in flames of war. Innocent beings were being slaughtered, wailing in anguish. Powerful cultivators were suppressed, lamenting their grievances. Numerous factions faced extermination, their treasures plundered. Even the four immortal powers that had existed in the eastern wilderness for countless years were besieged by numerous forces. Beside Nangong Wu, the four saints of Baiwuguo were brutally devoured by a white elephant beast. More than a dozen first-rate factions were collectively annihilated. You all hide. I must return to rescue the family, Nangong Wu said to a few disciples behind him, his eyes aflame with determination. What? No. We are also of the Nangong bloodline. We must protect the family. Grandfather, I want to go too. Several disciples of the Nangong family were furious. They were not cowards and had no intention of hiding. Nangong Wu glared fiercely, rebuking, "Foolish children, you're the future of the Nangong family. You cannot perish so easily. Go hide and wait for the divine son to emerge." Upon hearing this, the disciples were filled with sorrow. They loathed their low cultivation, feeling useless. If only they possessed the invincible power of the divine son, how wonderful that would be. Divine Son, please protect them. Nangong Wu fervently bowed to the chaotic Azure Lotus. Although he was older than Nangong Hao, the protector of the Nangong family, he deemed it worthy of reverence. The chaotic Azure Lotus emitted azure light, transforming into a lotus leaf that enveloped several young disciples. Nangong Wu sighed in relief, carrying the chaotic Azure Lotus, and angrily charged toward the Nangong family estate. With my humble body, I shall slay 10,000 foes. I will not retreat, even in death. At this moment, in the Death Valley, Nangong Hao witnessed Nangong Wu roar as he departed and could not help but let out a long sigh. The Qianji Pavilion may have calculated the heavens and the earth, but it did not foresee that the chaos in the eastern wilderness arose from the Hongmeng Demon Sea's fear of him, Nangong Hao. Yet, Nangong Hao did not let this dishearten him. He understood that this was not his fault. The Hongmeng Demon Sea had always sought to invade the eastern wilderness. His emergence merely accelerated the timeline. Moreover, how could others rationally justify invading him simply because he possessed potential for growth? What kind of logic was that? Nangong Hao shook his head and marched forward. The 11th toll of the bell resonated. Having approached the core area, Nangong Hao sensed an unparalleled and dreadful force of time. This surge of temporal power was sufficient to annihilate everyone. Nangong Hao's expression changed dramatically as the hands of the clock behind him finally began to move. The hour hand turned backward, and a force of time surged forward. The two forces of time collided. Nangong Hao coughed up a mouthful of blood, feeling exceedingly weak. The order of time was ultimately fragmented, never to rival the great path of time. Nevertheless, Nangong Hao managed to withstand it and survived. Behind him, many prodigies let out heart-wrenching screams, turning to ashes, along with their forbidden artifacts being obliterated. No one could survive the ravages of time, not even an emperor, unless they were an immortal. As Nangong Hao contemplated this, he gazed ahead. There stood a monk, resolutely advancing, bloodied, yet he had reached merely 3 meters before the Bodhi tree. If he took a few more steps, he would touch that supreme divine tree. Once the monk made contact with the divine tree, would he not allow Nangong Hao to proceed, thereby threatening his existence? Even a fool could discern the outcome. It was undoubtedly impossible. Chapter 148. 2 Imperial Artifacts, the Emergence of the Earth Store. Nangong Hao continued on his path with unwavering focus. All the prodigies who had entered were dead, leaving only him and the monk. At this moment, with every step both took, they were practically courting death. Nangong Hao possessed the order of time to counteract, allowing him to reverse time and barely recover. Even so, his vitality was rapidly depleting. He simply could not fathom how the monk managed to enter. Suddenly, thud, 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 Nangong Hao's footsteps echoed. He looked down and realized he had arrived at a peculiar land. The ground here was stained with blood, remnants of ancient strong beings who had perished. The temporal power had washed over, stripping it of energy. Otherwise, Nangonghao could have drawn upon the energies and ordered powers of these strong beings from their blood. What a pity. But in the next moment, Nangonghao had no time to dwell on that. A crushing force bore down upon him. It was a frenzied power, as if a 1,000-pound weight aimed to crush him. Nangonghao's expression grew solemn, never anticipating that as he ventured further. The force of time would undergo such a transformation. What did this signify? That life cannot bear the weight, is it time? Peculiar. Nangonghao maintained his composure, pressing onward. Yet, the clock behind him spun wildly, especially the second hand, whirling as fast as a fan. Though this allowed Nangonghao's vitality to recover, it rapidly consumed his life essence. That essence was the energy sustaining his existence. Once depleted, both body and soul would perish, beyond the salvation of even the immortals. In the face of such oppression, however, Nangonghao radiated with brilliance, as if an ancient returning immortal king, or divine being traversing worlds. Step by step, he rapidly burned through his life essence, catching up to the monk. At that moment, the monk had already reached beneath the Bodhi tree, breaking free from the control of the time force in the Death Valley. He turned, locking eyes with Nangonghao, obstructing his entry beneath the tree. "I have been waiting for you," the monk uttered astonishingly. He seemed to imply that unless Nangonghao came over to resolve a particular matter, he would not arrive. Nangonghao replied indifferently, "You cannot stop me." The monk did not dwell on this, instead stating, "This tree is called Bodhi, and it is said that it was planted by the Buddha himself, possessing a divine essence of the Buddhist realm. Those who acquire it can attain enlightenment and become a Buddha." Upon hearing the monk's introduction, a smirk of derision crossed Nangonghao's face. "Nonsense." The monk, slightly surprised, glanced at him and said, "Indeed, this is nonsense, a fabricated lie by the Buddhist sect to mislead the world into relinquishing their desire for the Bodhi tree. In truth, it is a primordial spiritual seed, a remnant of the immortals. Even the most formidable forces of the central continent, including the Wu clan and those from the southernmost lands, are unaware of this, and despite knowing the presence of the Bodhi tree, they still choose to abandon it. How ridiculous! I simply didn't expect you to see through this secret." Nangonghao shook his head. "I do not see through it. I merely feel that this thing does not seem like something an emperor could cultivate." The monk was astonished. Why? "Because it is unworthy." Nangonghao's gaze deepened. Emperors cannot withstand the ravages of time. What they plant cannot possibly possess such effects. The Bodhi tree, despite the relentless force of time in the Valley of Death, remains lush and even shields against the power of time. Such an ability is beyond the capacity of imperial artifacts. The monk was momentarily stunned, then burst into hearty laughter. Indeed, I, Jin Shanzi, have lived from ancient times until now, and you're the first to amuse me so." Hearing this, Nangonghao's heart surged with tumult. Living from ancient times until now. It should be noted that although Nangong Wushuang claimed to have lived through 8 lifetimes, it was still separated from the ancient era by hundreds of great epochs. Moreover, Jin Shanzi, the name sounds quite familiar. "You are Tang Sung?" Nangonghao hesitated. "Indeed, I am a monk from an indomitable dynasty known as the Great Tang in ancient times." "How did you know?" Jin Shanzi's face revealed astonishment. "I also know you're a disciple of the Buddha." Nangonghao slowly retreated. This person exuded great terror. Upon hearing Nangonghao's words, Jin Shanzi became even more intrigued. "I brought you here because I wish to take you as my disciple. It seems you are indeed quite suitable." A large clock appeared behind Nangonghao, its hands swiftly turning, and the overwhelming power of time surged towards Jin Shanzi. In the next moment, however, Jin Shanzi produced a small clock. This clock, known as the Chaos Bell, can stabilize the universe and shatter the ancient space-time. It is an imperial artifact. The rolling power of time unleashed by Nangonghao shook the Chaos Bell. The Chaos Bell rang twice. Ding ding. The force of time was forcefully torn apart. Nangonghao finally understood how Jin Shanzi had effortlessly approached the Bodhi tree. "Submit to my Buddha, for you have no path of retreat." Jin Shanzi approached calmly, a radiant bamboo appearing in his hand. That was the bitter bamboo, also known as the 6 roots of purity bamboo, the very plant cultivated by the ancient Buddha, ultimately transformed into an imperial artifact. A single strike from it, and no matter how monstrous you are, you must willingly convert to the Buddhist faith. This object can manipulate the soul. Nangonghao's pupils trembled. He had not anticipated that Jin Shanzi, as an ancient powerhouse, possessed 2 imperial artifacts. It was an insurmountable force. Behind Nangonghao, The Pu-Mo grass shook violently, sending white fluff flying toward Jin Shanzi, seeking an opportunity to evade. Buzz! The chaos bell trembled. All the white fluff exploded, even striking Nangonghao directly. He spat blood. His figure was immobilized by the chaos bell. He could neither evade nor resist. This was the power of an ancient being. Nangonghao was ultimately too young. Moreover, this fellow wielded 2 imperial artifacts with a single strike. Who could withstand that? Jin Shanzi, wielding the 6 roots of purity bamboo, gazed at Nangonghao with a face full of divine radiance. Amitba, benefactor. You are destined to cross paths with my Buddha. Allow this humble monk to guide you into the Buddhist fold, so that you may ascend to the Pure Land. Nangonghao desperately summoned his strength. Unfortunately, his Chaos Green Lotus was not present, for only that could withstand the assault of these 2 imperial artifacts. Now, he could only await his demise. However, just as the 6 roots of purity bamboo was about to strike down, 12 chimes of a bell rang out. Jin Shanzi's expression changed slightly as he swiftly retreated beneath the Bodhi tree. You did that on purpose. Although Nangonghao was severely injured by the 12 chimes, he also broke free from the control of the imperial artifacts. Huh, do you think I am truly foolish? Knowing you are formidable, I still approach you intentionally. Before getting close to Jin Shanzi, Nangonghao had already discerned that this fellow was anything but ordinary. Therefore, he had calculated the timing of the 12th bell toll in the Valley of Death. At this moment, it indeed proved to be of great significance. Nangonghao freed himself from the imperial artifact's grasp, but did not hastily flee. Instead, he charged toward the Bodhi tree. Within this Valley of Death, only the Bodhi tree could resist time. Jin Shanzi had already taken refuge beneath the tree, avoiding the ravages of the power of time. Upon seeing Nangonghao approach, he lightly shook the 6 roots of purity bamboo. Withdraw or submit. Nangonghao, in a state of panic, dodged the bamboo while cursing, Jin Shanzi, you scoundrel. Jin Shanzi remained unfazed, merely watching Nangonghao quietly surrender the Dizong inheritance and convert to my Buddha. A resplendent light radiated from him, his eyes shooting forth golden beams, transforming into a colossal swastika that enveloped Nangonghao's head, aiming to seize the opportunity while he was injured to refine his soul and forcibly recruit him into the Buddhist fold. Chapter 149. Seizing the Chaos Bell and initiating counterattack, Nangonghao beheld the swastika above his head, along with the boundless Buddhist light enveloping him. Gritting his teeth, he forcefully retreated. Just as he exited the range of the Bodhi tree's protection, the surrounding power of time surged violently. PFF. Nangonghao spat out blood. This was the first time he had been so severely beaten. Nonetheless, he felt a sense of pride. After all, he was facing an ancient powerhouse wielding 2 imperial artifacts, along with the power of time itself. Had it been anyone else, even another ancient powerhouse, they would have long perished. This only further increased Jin Shanzi's admiration for Nangonghao, desiring to take him as a servant of the Buddha. The 12 chimes of the bell, each carrying the power of destruction, sent Nangonghao reeling backward, seemingly attempting to force him out of the Valley of Death. However, if he were truly to exit, not only would everything here be in vain, but would also grant Jin Shanzi a 3rd formidable treasure, likely sealing the fate of the eastern wilderness. At that point, no matter where Nangonghao fled, he would be hunted down. Gritting his teeth, Nangonghao wielded the Dizong Binyuan Dao and fiercely slashed toward the incoming bell toll. Open for me. The intangible toll collided with the Dizong Binyuan Dao. Buzz! A great Buddha appeared behind Nangonghao, the very Dizong himself. Dizong sat cross-legged upon a lotus flower, his left hand supporting the chaos bell that Nangonghao had condensed, while his right hand grasped the Binyuan Dao before him. Kid, go seize the Bodhi tree. Do not forget our agreement. Dizong's voice resonated through heaven and earth, the thunderous sound suppressing the power of time in the Valley of Death. However, this was also due to him leveraging Nangonghao's time divine ability. Otherwise, he could not have withstood it. Nangonghao understood that Dizong could not hold on for long, yet he did not rush toward the Bodhi tree. Jin Shanzi was present. He could not contend with 2 imperial artifacts. Moreover, let us not forget, the Valley of Death harbored more than just the Bodhi tree as a treasure. There was also the Path of Time. Nangonghao possessed the Order of Time and could sense the location of the Path of Time. Seizing the opportunity while Dizong assisted him, he dashed forward. Dizong also understood Nangonghao's intentions and summoned his utmost power, 6 gigantic whirlpools appearing behind him. Those were the 6 paths of reincarnation. Jin Shanzi flung the Chaos Bell, asserting control over this realm to obstruct Nangonghao's movements. He then turned to Dizong, "Uncle Master, it has been a long time." Dizong coldly regarded Jin Chanzi. "I did not expect you to still be alive and to have become a quasi-emperor. Indeed, I did not expect you to still possess an undying soul, but you cannot protect this child. He is indeed remarkable. I can guide him to become a Buddha." Jin Chanzi gazed into the distance. Nangonghao has already been immobilized by the Chaos Bell. When he summons the chaotic phenomena, they will be shattered by the Chaos Bell. Even when he employs the Tribulation Thunder, it will be suppressed. Not even the power of the heavenly eye can break through the Chaos Bell. Undeterred, Nangonghao recklessly strikes the Chaos Bell with the remnants of his life essence, relentlessly using the Great Wukong to pound against it. The resounding clangs of the Chaos Bell echo through the void, creating a tremor that stirs the winds of the Valley of Death, unleashing a torrent of power that shakes the heavens and the earth. The impact extends beyond the Valley of Death, causing mountains to explode and the ground to fracture, with ripples of distortion even emanating from the fabric of space itself, seemingly on the brink of collapse. Jin Shanzipi Noed, instead brandishing the 6 pure bamboos in confrontation with Dizong. "Master, I have overstepped." With a resounding burst of Buddhist light, he charges towards Dizong. Dizong's expression turns solemn as he wields the Dizong Binyuan blade, striking at the 6 pure bamboos. The clash produces a thunderous sound. The Dizong Binyuan blade, immensely sturdy, strikes the bamboo, yet produces a sound of shattering. A fragment flies off the blade. Meanwhile, the 6 pure bamboos radiate with luminous brilliance, akin to exquisite jade, with not a single blemish to be seen. One is an imperial weapon, the other a quasi-imperial artifact. The disparity is immense. Dizong, undeterred, continues his relentless assault, delivering blow after blow. The myriad of blade shadows descend with unparalleled terror. Yet despite Jin Chanzi wielding the 6 pure bamboos, he can only passively endure, awaiting the exhaustion of Dizong's fragmented soul. The quasi-imperial black blade slashes down hundreds of times, its force threatening to cleave the very heavens, while the surrounding valley collapses, nearly razed to the ground. Yet the 6 pure bamboos remain unperturbed, showing not the slightest sign of damage. Jin Chanzi sighs, "Master, why must it be this way? If you return with me, nourished by the power of faith, there may yet be a chance for revival. Why cling so stubbornly?" Dizong's fragmented soul has grown exceedingly dim, replying coldly, "It is said that the path of Buddhism is pure, yet your master has rendered it utterly filthy. It is time for cleansing." Jin Chanzi shakes his head, disagreeing with Dizong's words. "Paths diverge, and thus collaboration is impossible. Since you insist on this, I must take action." Jin Chanzi swings the 6 pure bamboos, intent on striking down. Just then, his expression shifts dramatically as he turns in shock. There stands Nangonghao, drenched in blood. A pitiful sight, yet gripping an ancient, unadorned bell, the Chaos Bell. "How is this possible? You have actually refined it." For the first time, fear appears on Jin Chanzi's previously calm face. Dizong laughs heartily. "Kid, I knew you could do it. I knew it." Nangonghao's visage is fierce. "Jin Chanzi, if you must blame someone, blame the fact that the Chaos Bell was never yours to begin with. Do you still dare to let go?" The Chaos Bell is violently shook by Nangonghao. The 4 corners of the world tremble violently, the cosmos in turmoil, the sun and moon descending. Everything on the brink of destruction. Even the 12 tolls of the bell, not yet completed, are abruptly halted. This does not indicate that the Chaos Bell surpasses the power of time. It is merely that the path of time is uncontrolled. Jin Chanzi is indeed not the master of the Chaos Bell. He had seized it after suppressing a great force and transforming an entire nation into Buddhist servants using the 6 pure bamboos. Although he had not fully refined the Chaos Bell, he could never have anticipated that Nangonghao would succeed in doing so. "You have grasped the order of the artifact." Jin Chanzi, wielding the 6 pure bamboos, retreats while shouting. Regret fills him as he realizes that Nangonghao must have utilized the Great Wukong to strike the Chaos Bell, cleverly infusing it with the order of the artifact during that time, thus refining the Chaos Bell. By rights, an imperial artifact should not be easily refined. However, because Jin Chanzi did not fully master the Chaos Bell, he naturally left himself open to exploitation. The tide has turned. With a sigh, Jin Chanzi turns to leave, tapping a certain patch of ground with the 6 pure bamboos. There lies the hidden place of the Path of Time. The Path of Time transforms into a sundial, an ancient timepiece, which Jin Chanzi excavates and takes away. Nangonghao's pupils constrict, and he rushes forward, shaking the chaos bell frantically to seal the heavens and the earth. Meanwhile, Dizong's fragmented soul rushes towards the Bodhi tree, uprooting it with supreme magical power and casting his own shattered Dizong Binyuan blade into the process. Dizong intends to refine this ancient Bodhi tree into a treasured artifact. The chaos bell hovers in the void, solidifying a region, effectively restraining Jin Chanzi. Jin Chanzi, holding the 6 pure bamboos, braces against the pressure, astonished. I never expected the chaos bell to unleash its true power in your hands. This proves you are unworthy to wield it. Nan Gonghao lunges forward, aiming to seize the sundial. Obtaining that artifact would grant him mastery over the complete path of time, allowing him to manipulate time itself. Jin Chanzi, understanding this, wears a serene smile while accelerating his own refinement and comprehension of the sundial. Even with the chaos bell binding the imperial artifact, you are still not my match. Having cultivated for over 100 great eras, I have already attained mastery over creation. Were it not for the ceiling, a mere finger could crush you. Jin Chanzi's expression remains indifferent. He does not retaliate against Nan Gonghao, allowing him to attack frantically. Yet he cannot approach him. This is the chasm of power. No one knows why Jin Chanzi chose to seal his own strength. Perhaps it is a necessity for longevity, or perhaps it is due to a unique cultivation technique. But this is Nan Gonghao's sole opportunity. What other tricks do you have? Show them all. Let me witness your potential. Jin Chanzi's expression remains calm, regarding Nan Gonghao with disdain. Nan Gonghao, no longer impulsive, stands firm on the ground, his right hand slowly rising, imbued with awe-inspiring strength. The god-slaying, demon-subduing fist. He had refrained from using this technique until now, saving it for Jin Chanzi. As he channels his power, Jin Chanzi's expression indeed changes. What kind of fist technique is this? He exclaims in shock. Yet Nan Gonghao remains silent. A terrifying, ethereal shadow, resembling a celestial king, materializing behind him. He then delivers a punch, carrying with it the weight of annihilation. Jin Chanzi's expression finally grows grave as he senses the suppression and terror of this punch. Immolapale Mingvang said. Jin Chanzi bellows. He too is well-versed in fist techniques, as well as various other forms of combat. But when it comes to sheer power, none can rival the god-slaying, demon-subduing fist. Thus he can only adopt a defensive stance. The immovable Mingwang seal is the most formidable defensive technique of the Buddhist sect. No matter how fierce the winds may blow or how the earth may tremble, I remain steadfast. A colossal golden Buddha figure appears, enveloping Jin Chanzi as he sits cross-legged, exuding an aura of majesty. Nan Gonghao's ethereal figure unleashes a punch against this Buddha. The clash of two forces generates an extraordinarily terrifying wave. Within 100 miles, everything is obliterated. Even Dizong must temporarily retreat from the onslaught. A brilliant light envelopes the heavens and the earth, obscuring the figures of Nan Gonghao and Jin Chanzi from view. It is impossible to discern who will emerge victorious. But Dizong understands that Nan Gonghao is at a disadvantage. For Jin Chanzi's strength is undoubtedly above that of a quasi-emperor. He is even stronger than the Dizong of yore. Nan Gonghao, merely a 3-star saint, stands no chance. Crack! The point of collision between the two generates a crisp sound of shattering. Subsequently, Nan Gonghao spews blood, being forcefully propelled back to the ground. His bones have shattered in numerous places, leaving him in a woeful state. Defeated, sighs of resignation escape Dizong's lips, and with a sudden resolve, he prepares to charge at Jin Chanzi, hoping to create an opportunity for Nan Gonghao to escape. In the next moment, a beam of light erupted from the sky, enveloping the area where Jin Chanzi stood. This was the divine light of guidance. Dizong's face displayed astonishment. This divine light of guidance, also known as the exiling light, signified that a powerful being had reached the quasi-emperor realm and was deemed unacceptable in the Guanyin heavenly domain, necessitating their expulsion to the outer battlefield. Upon witnessing this scene, Nan Gonghao could not help but laugh heartily. Jin Chanzi, I truly did not anticipate that. Despite your profound wisdom in the Buddhist teachings and your esteemed title as the foremost monk of the Buddha, you would be continuously outsmarted by me. Enveloped in the divine light of guidance, Jin Chanzi's expression remained indifferent. You are clever, recognizing that direct confrontation with me is futile, and instead opting to shatter the seals within my body. Dizong was enlightened. It turned out that Nan Gonghao's earlier astonishing strike was not aimed at defeating Jin Chanzi. He had known from the outset that victory was unattainable. Thus, he intentionally broke the seals within Jin Chanzi's body, forcibly compelling the resurgence of his quasi-emperor power. prompting the Guangyuan heavenly domain to expel him. Brilliant. Utterly brilliant. However, Jinshanzi was reluctant to concede, coldly glaring at Nangong Hao. Are you not also reputed as invincible in this era? Yet you resort to such insidious methods to avoid battle, unafraid of damaging your Dao heart. This individual was evidently intent on employing psychological warfare. Nangong Hao, who had always been regarded as invincible, found himself having to resort to indirect means to triumph over his adversary, inevitably causing discomfort and potential harm to his Dao heart, which could hinder his path of cultivation. Yet Nangong Hao merely wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, forcing himself to rise from the ground, and with a confident smile, declared, Jinshanzi, you have cultivated for over 100 great epochs, far surpassing me by millions of years, and still have the audacity to accuse me of not confronting you directly? As for my Dao heart being damaged, I fear not, for I shall take you as my target and strive to cultivate. Grant me 10 years, no more than 10 years, and I shall personally venture to the outer realms to obliterate you. Upon hearing this, Jinshanzi, with his solemn and benevolent visage, could not suppress a wild laugh. You too can be deceived? 10 years. You will not even reach the Saint King realm. Furthermore, the sundial is in my possession, and you will never attain the complete path of time. Nangong Hao smirked. Do you think everyone is as inept as you? Sign in. After battling for a while, Nangong Hao had yet to sign in. Congratulations, host, sign in successful. Rewards, copying the Great Path. The system notified him. Nangong Hao immediately checked the details of this copying Great Path and burst into laughter. Copy the myriad laws, replicate all beings, duplicate heaven and earth. In essence, anything within Nangong Hao's sight could be copied and utilized. This meant that regardless of who or what martial arts technique it was, if Nangong Hao wished, he could replicate it for his own use. As the saying goes, attack with a spear against a shield. Who could prevail? He glanced at the sundial in Jinshanzi's hand while activating the copying Great Path. Soon, a sundial imbued with the complete path of time appeared in his grasp, identical in function to the one held by Jinshanzi. Jinshanzi was taken aback. Without pausing, Nangong Hao copied again. This time, he aimed to replicate Jinshanzi himself. Countless laws transformed into threads, weaving together in the air to form an illusory figure. At first glance, Jinshanzi understood, and his expression changed dramatically. Could it be that the long-lost copying Great Path has returned? This is a power of the Great Path that even many emperors cannot comprehend. How can you possibly master it? What can I not master? Nangong Hao relentlessly copied Jinshanzi. Should he succeed, he would acquire combat prowess indistinguishable from that of Jinshanzi. Are you not powerful, Jinshanzi? Very well. I shall make good use of your strength. Jinshanzi dared not delay any longer and swiftly fled along the divine light of guidance. He was terrified. He retreated to the outer battlefield. If he lingered, he feared he would truly be copied. Upon witnessing Jinshanzi's escape, the illusory figure he had been copying also vanished, leaving Nangong Hao somewhat disappointed. Copying a quasi-emperor proved too taxing. He managed to flee. Dezong, beside him, wore a look of exasperation. Having grasped the most peculiar copying Great Path of the ancient era, he could only revel in his fortune. Did he truly expect to replicate a quasi-emperor? What a naive notion. Chapter 151. The 6 realms of reincarnation, transmuting stone into swine. Jinshanzi had fled, although he carried away the original sundial. Nangong Hao had obtained the copy, granting him access to the power of the Path of Time. If anyone else were to master the copying Great Path, they would merely replicate their enemy's strength temporarily, unable to sustain it beyond a certain duration. The copying Great Path allowed for infinite replication, but the copies were ultimately not genuine and would have time limitations. Yet, who could have anticipated that Nangong Hao possessed the Chaos Qinglian? His Chaos Qinglian inherently bore the Path of Time, merely requiring the power of the Great Path for sustenance. The power of this copied Great Path could serve as that very sustenance. Thus, Nangong Hao had effectively acquired the sundial. However, as the Chaos Qinglian was not at hand, he would first need to return to the Nangong clan. Of course, the most pressing matter at hand was to remove the Bodhi tree. Dezong, with a serious demeanor, remarked, "The Bodhi tree is difficult to refine. You must assist me with the sundial and the order of the artifacts. There is no need for such complications." Nangong Hao approached, placing his hand upon the Bodhi tree, causing divine patterns to emerge. Those are the Great Path of all things. It was the power gained from Stone Man. The Great Path of all things could absorb the essence of all, using it for oneself. Nan Gonghao pondered why he should toil to refine it when he could simply absorb it directly. The Bodhi tree had grown for billions of years, containing boundless energy. Even an emperor might struggle to refine it. Nan Gonghao directly absorbed the energy within, replenishing himself. It was straightforward. His nearly exhausted life source rapidly revitalized, and his damaged body continually restored and even grew stronger. Regrettably, without the chaos Qinglian, draining this Bodhi tree would have been a trivial task. As Nan Gonghao contemplated, he suddenly felt the great tree begin to tremble. Who is shaking the tree? He asked curiously. Dizong's remnant soul hovered in midair, his expression peculiar. No one is moving. It seems to be moving on its own. Moving on its own? Has this thing come to life? Nan Gonghao remarked incredulously. In the next moment, the Bodhi tree, before the astonished gazes of Nan Gonghao and Dizong, suddenly uprooted itself and fled in a panic. What the hell? The tree is running away. It has indeed come to life. Both Nan Gonghao and Dizong exclaimed in unison. All the roots of the Bodhi tree lifted from the ground, and two thick roots, resembling human legs, pounded the earth with a resounding thud as it dashed away without a trace. The spectacle was utterly comical. Nan Gonghao stared in disbelief, momentarily forgetting to pursue. By the time he regained his wits and attempted to chase after it, it was already too late. Dizong, equally helpless, remarked, "The Bodhi tree has indeed gained consciousness. It was deliberately hiding here, avoiding human contact. Now that the Valley of Death has vanished, it likely seeks a new place that is difficult for others to approach. Does this mean it has gone to another life-restricted zone?" Nan Gonghao hesitated. It is also possible that it has gone to the Ascending Heaven Palace, as it originally emerged from there, Dizong explained. Nan Gonghao understood. Then there is no need to rush. Let's first address the issue of these invaders. Dizong sighed softly. It is a pity that my Binyuan Dao sword has been destroyed. However, with your possession of the Chaos Bell, the sword is of little consequence now. No, the power of the great path of reincarnation it contains is quite useful. Please help me refine it into a pen, Nan Gonghao requested earnestly. He understood that Dizong had exhausted all his strength and was on the verge of passing away. Leaving behind the Binyuan Dao sword would still serve as a memento. Dizong comprehended Nan Gonghao's intentions and, smiling, assisted in the refinement. Having guarded hell for many years, he had long since seen through life and death, unafraid of mortality. Soon, a pen took shape through the refinement process. It was a pure black brush, approximately a foot in length, with a slender shaft and a broad tip. Nan Gonghao integrated the previously acquired Tianhua brush and the order of calligraphy and painting into it. In an instant, the brush radiated a brilliant light, inscribed with mysterious divine chains of order, exuding an aura of enchantment. The Earth Repository refined this brush, causing his form to dim slightly. I shall merge my last vestiges of power into this brush. You may name it, he said. Upon hearing this, Nan Gonghao felt a pang of sorrow and, after a brief contemplation, replied, "Let me name Qianshou Luanhui Bai." The Earth Repository's eyes sparkled, and he laughed heartily. That is a splendid name, embodying eternity and endless cycles. With that, he transformed into a beam of light, merging into the Qianshou Luanhui Bai. Thus, the Earth Repository ceased to exist in the world, leaving only the legends he once bequeathed. Nan Gonghao grasped the brush with a solemn expression. Rest assured, I shall unveil the sinister faces of those treacherous individuals in the Buddhist sect. The Qianshou Luanhui Bai remained silent, for the Earth Repository had completely lost consciousness. Nan Gonghao said no more and turned his gaze toward a large stone lying motionless in the distance. I expected you to have the courage to ambush me while I was engaged in battle. The stone remained utterly still, appearing to be an inanimate object. Yet, Nan Gonghao understood that this was the stone man who had previously transformed from the spirit of the Ling by original stone. He had disguised himself as a common rock, presumably intending to launch a surprise attack, but had yet to act. I have seized your divine markings. Do you not wish to fight me? Nan Gonghao scoffed. You cannot win. The stone man, likely realizing he could not evade his fate, candidly admitted defeat, yet remained in his original form. He had witnessed Nan Gonghao's astonishing punch. Upon seeing the Divine Slayer's fist, the stone man understood he could not contend with Nan Gonghao. Since you realize you're not my match, then submit. Though the Holy Spirit is powerful, cultivation is arduous. I can guide you in your training, leading you to enlightenment and immortality. Nan Gonghao declared confidently. The stone man replied in a low voice, I may not oppose you, but I shall never submit. The Holy Spirits are an exceptionally proud race. They are nurtured by the heavens and earth, embodying the will of the cosmos. How could they easily bow to another? Nan Gonghao sighed, truly unwilling to submit. The stone man remained silent, feigning his stony demeanor. Very well, then perish. Nan Gonghao approached. The stone man chuckled darkly. You cannot kill me, for I am a holy spirit and can escape at will. With the Qian Shou Luan Hui Bai in hand, Nan Gonghao coldly declared, Power of reincarnation, coalesce. With the demise of the Earth repository, the path of reincarnation naturally bestowed its might upon Nan Gonghao. At that moment, the power of the 6 paths of reincarnation crystallized, transforming into a black tome. The cover was inscribed with 3 great characters. Sheng Si Lu, holding the Qian Shou Luan Hui Bai. Nan Gonghao inscribed within the tome. The stone spirit is guilty. Transform into a pig fetus. The 6 paths of reincarnation comprise the path of heaven's people, the path of humanity, the path of beasts, the path of Asuras, the path of hungry ghosts, and the path of hell. In that moment, Nan Gonghao audaciously wielded the power of reincarnation to cast the stone man into the path of beasts, forcibly transforming him into a pig fetus. A great force of heaven and earth converged, enveloping the stone man. No, what is this power? What do you intend to do? The once audacious stone man suddenly cried out in terror. He felt an overwhelming force, one that rivaled the will of the cosmos, rendering his divine markings ineffective. Subsequently, that power enveloped him, and with a resounding boom, white smoke billowed forth. When the smoke cleared, the stone man had indeed transformed into a large, plump pig. Chapter 152. The 4 great immortal forces unite in desperate resistance. The stone man had become a large white pig, stripped of all strength and divine abilities. He truly resembled a pig awaiting slaughter. Unable to resist, he could not even communicate with the earth to escape. This filled the stone man with dread. What is this power? It is the power of reincarnation. Nan Gonghao flicked his finger, directly striking off the stone man's pigtail. Oink, oink, oink. The stone man cried out in agony, his pig body convulsing in pain. Gazing at his bleeding rear, he was in utter torment, unable to heal his wounds or even alleviate the pain. The stone man was terrified. What manner of force is this? It can fundamentally alter my life characteristics. He could even sense that the heavenly will he once bore had vanished. This signified that he had truly transformed into an entirely different species. The heavens and earth no longer wished to protect him. I submit. I submit. The stone man, driven by desperation, had no choice but to cry out. Nan Gonghao's demeanor remained indifferent. Swear an oath. The stone man's expression stiffened. As a holy spirit, his oaths would carry greater weight than those of other beings. Should he violate his vow, the punishment would be severe. Yet, observing the situation, he had no choice but to reluctantly swear his allegiance. He deeply regretted coming here. Originally intending to ambush Nan Gonghao and avenge past grievances, only to find himself ensnared. With the stone man's submission, Nan Gonghao reclaimed the power of reincarnation that resided within him. The stone man reverted to his original form, and, realizing he could now channel his spiritual energy without obstruction, finally breathed a sigh of relief. Let's depart. Nan Gonghao soared into the air, heading towards the Nan Gong family. The stone man had no choice but to follow suit. The Valley of Death, stripped of the Bodhi tree and the power of time, had been utterly devastated. Were it not for the various scars left by the battle, it would be hard to believe this was once a forbidden zone of life. As Nan Gonghao flew out of the Valley of Death, his heart sank. Before him, the vast expanse of the Dongwang domain was strewn with blood and corpses, both of native beings and invading outsiders. At that moment, the fog of the Hongmeng Demon Sea had already encroached upon half of the Dongwang domain. This mist carried an incredibly terrifying corrosive nature. Those enveloped by it would perish in agonizing screams, and even various plants struggled to survive. Only a few spiritual herbs managed to endure, but they were swiftly plucked by the beings of the Demon Sea. This was a horrific calamity. The Hongmeng Demon Sea sought to annihilate all life within the Dongwang domain. They aimed to transform this place into a desolate wasteland inhabited solely by the creatures of the Demon Sea. Nan Gonghao understood that these fiends likely sought to emulate the other 3 domains, establishing a monopoly here. In doing so, they might elevate the status of the Dongwang domain within the Guangyuan heavenly domain. However, no being within the Dongwang domain would willingly sacrifice themselves to enhance its standing. The Nan Gong family was now the last bastion of purity within the Dongwang domain. The encroaching Hongmeng mist was being fiercely resisted by the shaking sky bell. with the Eternal Green Tree also lending its aid. The Void Warship exerted its utmost effort, and even the Heavenly Emperor seal of the Baiwuguo radiated its divine might. Yet, they were compelled to counter the imperial artifacts of the Hongmeng Demon Sea, finding it immensely challenging. Indeed, some imperial artifacts were already showing signs of fracture. The four great immortal forces had fully united. They set aside past enmities and grievances, fighting side by side, even coming to each other's aid. For the Dongwang domain had reached its most perilous moment. The Hongmeng Demon Sea launched a relentless assault, while other factions in the Guanyuan Heavenly Domain seized the opportunity. The population of the Dongwang domain had already dwindled by nearly half. The ancestors of the four great immortal forces, who had long been hidden within their coffins, had all emerged. Yet they found themselves ensnared. The Hongmeng Demon Sea possessed numerous formidable ancestors, even more and stronger than the four great forces. The ancestors of the four immortal forces could only fight desperately.